Welcome to the Romance Fiction Club, where different romance authors come together to share their romance works. If you think our library is missing a romance genre you love, please let us know in the comments. We will do our best to make that content available. Please subscribe to the channel so we can keep creating free audiobooks for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a wonderful listening.
This content is adapted in order to comply with YouTube guidelines. If you wish to access hundreds of romance novels filled with steamy scenes, join the club through the link available in the description. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and thank you.
Interstellar Bond. A sci-fi alien romance, written by Ella Wayne, a USA Today bestselling author. Chapter 1. Samantha tossed and turned beneath the sheets, her restless mind filled with fragments of alien landscapes and inhuman figures. Alabaster skin and glowing eyes haunted the edges of her vision, striking a chord of both fear and fascination in her subconscious. She knew she was dreaming, yet everything felt so vivid. The purplish grass beneath her feet, the twin suns casting an eerie glow over crumbling stone ruins in the distance. Most of all, she could sense a presence, towering and powerful, gazing down at her with a mixture of curiosity and longing. "Who are you?" She tried to speak, but no words escaped her lips. All she could do was stare up at that pale, angular face and piercing eyes as a wave of mingled dread and arousal washed over her. This can't be real. I must be imagining this. But her rational mind offered no reassurance, overwhelmed by the intensity of sensations flooding her senses. The musky scent of alien pheromones, the crackle of energy in the air, the slow caress of fingertips against her cheek. Every detail imprinted itself on her memory as though she were truly there. "Samantha?" A deep, resonant voice echoed through her mind. "You have nothing to fear from me. I am Kiron, an envoy from the Xendari race." She blinked up at the alien figure, struggling to find her voice. "What is that supposed to mean? What do you want from me?" "Only to know you," came the reply, "as you are coming to know me. We have been observing you, and I have been chosen to be your partner in our hybridization program." "What are you talking about?" Samantha urged. "You will never be harmed or in danger. This I can assure you. All we seek is your consent to continue working with you. This is all I can reveal for now." Kiron finished before disappearing before her eyes. A shiver ran down her spine at the implication. She didn't know this being or understand how it had entered her dreams, yet she couldn't deny the connection forming between them or the longing awakening inside her. Samantha sat upright with a gasp, her heart pounding as she emerged from the dream. But the memory of alabaster skin and glowing eyes remained, haunting her waking thoughts. She feared she might never be free of this alien seduction playing out in the theater of her subconscious. Samantha ran a hand through her tousled hair, taking a steadying breath. It was just a dream. A disturbingly vivid dream, but a dream nonetheless. Her overactive imagination must have constructed the alien encounter from bits and pieces of science fiction movies she enjoyed. There were no such things as aliens with glowing eyes who could enter people's dreams. She was simply allowing her mind to get away from her, as it often did. Still, she couldn't dismiss the lingering unease or the way her heart continued to pound. The details felt too real, the connection too intimate to be mere fantasy. A part of her feared she might slip back into that same erotic dream if she dared close her eyes again. She glanced at the clock on her bedside table, realizing sleep would remain elusive for the rest of the night. Samantha sighed and threw off the covers, padding into the kitchen to make a pot of strong coffee. She needed to stay awake and grounded in reality, not wander the obscure landscapes of her subconscious where an alien seducer seemed intent on claiming her as his own. There had to be a reasonable explanation for these dreams that didn't defy all logic. She refused to believe they were anything more than a fiction created by her overactive imagination, no matter how real they felt. Samantha cradled the mug of coffee in her hands, staring out the kitchen window at the first golden rays of sunrise filtering between the skyscrapers. Her analytical mind wrestled with the problem of her dreams, attempting to find a logical solution. There were studies about how the brain couldn't distinguish between reality and imagination during certain stages of sleep. Perhaps her mind had entered a hyper-realistic phase of dreaming due to stress or fatigue. Yet she couldn't ignore the growing intimacy of each encounter or how she anticipated them with a mix of dread and arousal upon falling asleep each night. It felt like more than a figment of her imagination. There seemed to be an intelligence and purpose behind the alien's seduction, as though he were slowly awakening her to truths she didn't fully comprehend. A chill ran down Samantha's spine at the thought, her grip tightening around the mug. She didn't want to believe such absurd notions. Aliens weren't visiting her in dreams or impregnating her with some hybrid child. Her mind was playing tricks on her, dredging up fears and desires from the depths of her subconscious. There had to be a rational explanation. Still, her curiosity remained. If these were only dreams, why did they feel so real? Why did she find herself wanting to abandon reason and embrace the fantastical possibilities they represented? She longed to give herself over to the alien's touch, to be claimed and filled in a way that transcended physical form. Part of her recoiled at such strange desires, while another hungered to understand them. Samantha sighed and finished her coffee, glancing again at the clock. She would call Dr. Linden and schedule another hypnotherapy session. Perhaps they could uncover the root cause of these dreams by exploring her subconscious mind. There had to be answers, a logical reason her imagination had fixated on this alien seduction. She simply needed to look deeper. Deeper into herself and the truth behind her connection to a world that couldn't possibly exist. Samantha dressed and headed into work, thoughts of her dreams lingering in the back of her mind. She tried to focus on the tasks at hand but found herself distracted, curiosity gnawing at her despite her attempts to dismiss the dreams as meaningless. There were pieces that didn't quite fit, details too vivid and sensations too visceral to be born of fantasy alone. During her lunch break, she called Dr. Linden and scheduled an appointment for that evening. If she was going to move past this fixation, she needed answers. Answers that would ground her in reality once more and quiet the part of her longing to abandon reason. After ending the call, Samantha sat back with a sigh. What was she doing? Chasing aliens and abductions like some fanatic, letting her imagination run wild. She shook her head and finished her salad, hesitating when she felt a now familiar warmth blossoming within her abdomen. It was too soon for the life inside her to move, assuming there even was a life at all, yet she could swear she sensed its presence stirring. A sharp laugh escaped her at the absurdity of it all, drawing a curious glance from a coworker. Samantha offered a sheepish smile and apology before clearing her tray, pulse racing as she walked back to her office. She was losing her grip on sanity, letting sci-fi movies and a hyperactive imagination craft delusions of alien hybrid pregnancies. Tonight's session couldn't come soon enough. She needed answers, and she needed them now, before she completely lost herself in the possibilities of a reality that simply couldn't be. Samantha arrived at Dr. Linden's office, palms sweating despite the cool evening air. She had spent the afternoon wrestling with doubts and questions, torn between anticipation and apprehension at what she might discover. Part of her still clung to rational explanations, dismissing the strange sensations and vivid dreams as tricks of an overactive mind. Yet she couldn't escape a quiet urgency that drew her here, a need to understand the truth no matter how impossible it seemed. Dr. Linden greeted her with a warm smile, ushering Samantha into the cozy office. "It's good to see you again. How have you been since our last session?" Samantha took a seat on the sofa, fingers twisting together. "Honestly, I'm not sure. The dreams are getting more intense and frequent. There are other things too, feelings and thoughts that don't make sense. I'm hoping hypnosis might provide some answers." "I understand this has been difficult for you." Dr. Linden settled into an armchair, leaning forward with an earnest expression. "Hypnosis can be an effective tool for uncovering subconscious memories or the root causes of distressing symptoms. However, I want to caution that what we discover may be uncomfortable or strange. First, you must be prepared for that possibility." Samantha nodded, jaw tightening with determination. "I need the truth, whatever that may be. If my mind is playing tricks on me, I have to know so I can find the right treatment. And if it's not—" She shook her head, loath to give voice to impossible hopes. "We'll cross that bridge if we come to it." "All right, I appreciate your openness. Whenever you're ready, make yourself comfortable and close your eyes. Dr. Linden began to speak in a soft, soothing tone as Samantha did as instructed. Her body relaxed into the sofa, breaths deepening while the psychologist's voice seemed to grow more distant. An odd floating sensation came over her, as if she were suspended between wakefulness and sleep. "Can you hear me, Samantha?" Dr. Linden asked, her voice echoing from far away. Samantha managed a faint murmur of assent, dimly aware of her physical form while her mind drifted in vivid haze. "I want you to focus on the dreams that have been troubling you. Picture the images and scenes that stand out most clearly. Describe what you see." Samantha's brow furrowed, flashes of her recurring vision appearing against the backdrop of her closed eyelids. The towering figures with pale, gleaming skin and obsidian eyes. A sterile chamber filled with unusual technology. Herself on an operating table, a looming shadow bending over her prone form. "I see a room, some kind of laboratory," she whispered, finding it difficult to form words while in this trance-like state. "There are strange machines and lights. I'm lying on a table, and a figure is leaning over me. It's not human. It is pale and hairless with black eyes." Her heart raced, a chill running down her spine at the vividness of these impressions. "Go deeper into the memory," Dr. Linden urged, her voice fading further away. "What else do you see?" Samantha's breaths quickened, panic and wonder warring within her. "I can't move. The figure is doing something, touching me with long, delicate fingers. It's like I'm paralyzed, but I can feel sensations all through my body." Her face flushed at the intimacy of these impressions, embarrassment and arousal mingling as her memory seemed to sharpen. "There's a light, some kind of beam scanning over me," she continued, lost within the vision. "It's warm, tingling, like it's penetrating my skin and muscle. Then it focuses lower, between my legs." She trailed off with a soft gasp, mortified heat flooding her cheeks. Yet she couldn't deny the visceral details and emotions surfacing, as if this were more than a strange dream, as if it were a living memory. Samantha's eyes flew open, her heart pounding as she emerged from the hypnotic trance. For a moment she could only stare at Dr. Linden in stunned disbelief, her mind reeling from the implications of what she had uncovered. "Aliens," she breathed, shaking her head. "It can't be real. This has to be some kind of delusion." Yet she knew, in the depths of her being, that it was more than imagination. The details were too vivid, the emotions too raw and visceral to dismiss. She gripped the arms of her chair, knuckles turning white as she struggled to accept a truth that defied all logic and reason. Dr. Linden studied her with a mixture of empathy and fascination. "Your subconscious mind perceived those memories as absolutely real. While unusual, cases of alleged alien abduction are not unheard of." She paused, weighing her next words carefully. "If those impressions are accurate, it seems you may have been impregnated during that encounter. Is it possible you could be carrying an alien hybrid child?" The implications struck Samantha like a blow, robbing her of breath. She shook her head in mute denial, bile rising in her throat at the thought. Yet she couldn't ignore the changes in her body or her cycles over the past months, a dawning horror suggesting this might be more than a hypothetical possibility. She buried her face in her hands, overwhelmed by the enormity of this revelation and what it might mean, not just for her own life, but for humanity itself. How could she accept such an extraordinary and impossible truth? How could she even begin to comprehend what might come next? Samantha took a deep, trembling breath, steadying herself. She had to stay calm, think this through rationally, and determine the facts. But nothing could have prepared her for a possibility as shattering as this. Her world had been turned upside down, all certainties collapsing around her as she faced a future more alien than anything she could imagine. Samantha sat in her living room, surrounded by stacks of books on extraterrestrial life, alien abductions, and new age spirituality. She had spent the past few days immersed in research, trying to understand what she might be facing if Dr. Linden's hypothesis proved correct. Though her analytical mind recoiled at the strangeness of it all, she couldn't ignore her growing fascination with Xendari culture and beliefs. Kiron's world seemed idyllic compared to humanity's conflicted existence, a harmonic society built on empathy, spiritual connection, and reverence for nature. She traced a finger over the symbols on an open book, picturing Chiron's alabaster skin and glowing eyes as she did so often now. A flush crept over her at the memory of her dreams, a mixture of trepidation and something else she couldn't quite name. With a sigh, Samantha closed the book and leaned back, resting her hands on her still flat abdomen. She knew she couldn't avoid the truth any longer. It was time to accept what might come and prepare for a future both wondrous and terrifying. Her phone rang, startling Samantha from her reverie. Dr. Linden's name flashed on the caller ID, and she took a steadying breath before answering. "Erica, I was just thinking of calling you," she said, her voice measured. "I've been doing a lot of reading, and I think I'm ready to discuss this further. I have so many questions, and a long way to go before I fully understand what's happening. But I want you to know, I'm willing to face whatever truths we may uncover." Dr. Linden was silent for a moment. "I'm glad to hear that, Samantha. This will be a difficult journey, but we'll take it one step at a time together." Samantha nodded, tracing a finger over the cover of the Xendari text again. "These dreams, they've become ever more vivid, almost real. And there are other signs too. Things that make me wonder if this really is happening and not just in my imagination." She hesitated, but Dr. Linden's gentle prompting gave her courage to continue. "My body feels different somehow. And my moods, they've been fluctuating in strange ways. I didn't want to consider the possibility, but it seems your experiences may be manifesting in physical changes," Dr. Linden finished for her. "That would be consistent with an alien hybrid pregnancy. Have you noticed anything else out of the ordinary?" Samantha glanced down at the book in her lap, staring at the intricate symbols that had become so familiar. "I've developed an almost obsessive interest in Xendari culture. It's like I have this deep connection to their world that I can't explain. And when I see Kiron in my dreams, She trailed off, heat rising in her cheeks. How could she possibly describe the intensity of her reaction to him, the magnetic pull she felt in his presence? "It's all right, you can say it," Dr. Linden encouraged gently. "I'm here to listen without judgment." Samantha took a steadying breath and closed her eyes. "When I see him, it awakens something in me. A desire, an attraction I've never felt before. It frightens and thrills me all at once. I don't know what it means, but it feels real. As real as anything I've ever known." She opened her eyes again, gazing out the window at the city skyline stretching before her. Somewhere out there, she sensed the truth waiting to be found. The truth about Kiron, about her dreams, and a new life awakening inside her. She was ready now to seek those answers no matter where they might lead.
Chapter 2. Samantha's sheets tangled around her legs, a physical echo of the turmoil in her mind. Sleep was a relentless maze. With each turn, she only delved deeper into the vivid dreams that held her captive. "Impossible," she muttered to herself, her voice a raspy whisper lost in the quietude of night. Above her, shadows danced across the ceiling, morphing into images that defied logic. They grew tall, stretching and reshaping until towering figures loomed over her. Their skin shone like moonlit marble, flawless and cool. Eyes glowed like distant stars, beckoning her into the vast unknown. "Who?" The question died on her lips, her breath hitched by the sight. Awe struck her silent. Her heartbeat, once a staccato drum in her chest, now matched the rhythmic pulsing of those luminous eyes. Fascination edged out fear. She reached out a trembling hand, fingers grazing the air where the dream figures should have been. "Is this for real?" The word barely escaped, a ghost of sound. But there was no answer, only the steady gaze of glowing eyes that promised truths too vast for her waking world to contain. Samantha lay still, the figures etched into her slumber, their silent vigil an enigma that promised no easy awakening. "Welcome, Samantha Wells," a voice resonated within the dream, commanding yet imbued with an unfathomable gentleness. The sound seemed to vibrate through her very essence, a symphony of authority and calm. Samantha's eyes snapped toward the source. She stood, bare feet cold against what felt like ground yet not quite solid. Before her towered a figure, majestic and serene. "Who are you really?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. "My full name, Kiron Xendaris, Ambassador of Xendari," he replied. His words were clear, deliberate, each syllable a crafted note that hung in the air between them. Kiron's form was a sculpted silhouette against the nebulous backdrop of her dreamscape. He stood impossibly tall, his white skin a contrast to the surrounding void. It gleamed, as if moonlight bathed him, and him alone. Xendari. The name rolled off her tongue as it sparked a recognition deep within. His eyes captured hers, orbs of incandescent light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with her accelerated heartbeat. They held a gravity, drawing her in, promising depths and wisdom far beyond her grasp. "Your presence here is no accident," Kiron continued, his glowing gaze never wavering. "Is this really happening?" she questioned, her analytical mind grasping for logic in the illogical. "More than you can imagine," he assured her with a certainty that bordered on the tangible. Samantha took a hesitant step forward, drawn to the alien ambassador by a curiosity that overrode her sense of the impossible. His allure was not just in his visage, but in the enigmatic aura that surrounded him, a puzzle her soul yearned to solve. "Tell me why," she demanded softly, entranced by the surreal encounter. "There is much to be shared, Samantha. Much to be understood," Kiron said, his voice a low thrum that seemed to echo from the stars themselves. "In time, all will become clear." "Time," she echoed, the word hanging between them like a promise yet to be fulfilled. Samantha's breath came in short gasps, her body jolting upright. The darkness of her bedroom pressed in on her as she struggled to catch her breath. The dream clung to her consciousness, too vivid, too real. Her heart thudded against her ribs like a frantic bird desperate for escape. "Light," she whispered, and the lamp beside her flickered to life at the command, chasing away the shadows. She scanned the room, half expecting the towering figure to materialize before her. But there was only silence and the familiar clutter of her small apartment. "Okay, Sam, get a grip," she muttered to herself, rubbing her eyes. They felt gritty from the sudden awakening. She checked the clock, 3:17 a.m., and let out a shaky laugh. Too early for sanity, too late for peace of mind. "Xendari," she said aloud, tasting the word again. It sounded absurd here, amidst her tangled sheets and the pile of laundry that needed attention. Kiron. Even his name felt alien on her tongue, an intrusion into her reality. Right, because alien ambassadors visit in dreams all the time. She shook her head, dismissing the images that refused to fade. Too many sci-fi marathons, that's what this is. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, feeling the floor under her bare feet. She padded across the room, her movements automatic as she made her way to the kitchenette for a glass of water. The liquid was cold, grounding, but did little to wash away the remnants of her dream. "Visions now? Since when do I have visions?" Samantha spoke to her reflection in the window, seeing the skepticism etched in her green eyes. "You're an analyst, not a psychic. Data, not dreams." "Maybe it's stress, or some weird reaction to that new herbal tea." She tried to chuckle, but it sounded forced even to her own ears. "Yeah, must be the tea." Samantha set the empty glass down, resolving to ignore the unsettling tug of something unexplained. Her mind was playing tricks. It had to be. Dreams were just the brain's way of sorting through the day's debris. "Tomorrow, you'll wake up and this will all feel like a distant memory," she promised her reflection. And yet, as she turned off the light and crawled back into bed, the echo of Kiron's voice followed her into the uneasy darkness. "More than you can imagine." Samantha blinked into the darkness, her breath a shallow echo. The sheets tangled around her like vines. Another dream. Vivid. Persistent. "Kiron?" she whispered, the name unfamiliar, yet intimate on her mind. The towering figure from her dreams materialized in her mind's eye, his skin almost translucent against the backdrop of her dim bedroom. Samantha's heart thudded, a drumbeat syncing with the rhythm of an unseen world. "Each night you return," she murmured, half to herself, half expecting the alien ambassador to answer. And then he did. "Time wanes for us, Samantha." Kiron's voice resonated in her head, ethereal as the glow in his eyes. "My race teeters on the brink. We seek salvation." Salvation? Samantha sat up, her voice a mix of fear and intrigue. "Interbreeding," Kiron declared, the urgency clear even in the dreamlike state. "Our survival hinges on it." "Interbreeding," she echoed, the word hanging in the air like a verdict. "Hope," Samantha repeated, her skeptical mind grappling with the implications. "For both of us?" "Indeed." His image flickered like a candle in the wind. "We are reaching out before the end." "Before the end," she said, the weight of his message anchoring the dream to reality. "Consider this." Kiron's voice faded, leaving a palpable silence. Samantha lay back down, her heartbeat the only sound in the room. Curiosity coursed through her veins, a stream of questions flowing unchecked. Her skepticism waned, replaced by a growing need to understand, to unravel the mystery woven between her dreams and the waking world. "Consider what?" she asked the darkness. But Kiron was gone, his urgent plea lingering like a whisper on the edge of dawn. Samantha paced the room, her thoughts a tempest. Kiron's words echoed, a mantra of desperation and survival. Her hands trembled. She stopped, breathing hard, trying to steady herself against the wave of emotions. "Interbreeding," she whispered into the silence. The concept was alien, unsettling, yet somewhere within, a strange heat unfurled. Without it, Kiron's deep voice filled her mind again, not a dream this time, but a memory. "My people will vanish." "Vanish," she repeated, tasting the gravity of his plea. "Imagine," he continued, "a new future, our legacy entwined with humanity's potential." She closed her eyes, visions of interstellar union flashing behind her lids, a mingling of starlight and flesh. "But why me?" "Because you understand," he said, the warmth in his tone wrapping around her doubts. "Your empathy, your curiosity, they are the bridges between our worlds." Samantha let out a shaky breath. Kiron's sincerity was palpable, his need urgent. It resonated with something primal within her, stirring a response she couldn't quite name. "Consider the possibility," he urged, a race reborn from the ashes of extinction. The idea was both terrifying and intoxicating. Could she be part of something so monumental? The thought sent a thrill through her body, unexpected and confusing. "Time is fleeting, Samantha," Kiron pressed. "We must act." Kiron's desperation was clear, his mission critical. And beneath it all, that inexplicable arousal persisted, drawing her closer to the brink of an unknown frontier. Samantha's fingers grazed the cool fabric of her sheets, a stark contrast to the warmth that lingered in her core. She sat up, her heart still dancing to the rhythm of Kiron's words. "Impossible," she whispered to the shadows that clung to the corners of her bedroom. Logic fought against the sensual haze that clouded her thoughts. "Empathy bridges worlds," she recalled, the echo of Kiron's voice a ghostly caress against her mind. Samantha shook her head. Dreams didn't speak. They didn't negotiate or plead. "Analytical," she chided herself. "Be analytical." Her own voice sounded foreign in the silence, too real compared to the dreamt whispers of an alien ambassador. "Analyze what?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Samantha drew her knees to her chest, resting her chin atop them. Kiron's image still lingering behind her closed eyelids, that skin, those eyes. A beacon in the void. Attraction to a dream? Her tone was incredulous, a scientist scoffing at an anomaly. Yet, Beneath her skepticism, the heat surged again, undeniable, drawing her back to his essence. Mission critical, he had said. A hybrid race, his desperation unmistakable. But why did it feel as though her soul recognized his urgency, as if it was woven into the very fabric of her being? Focus, Samantha. Clarity was a distant star she couldn't quite reach. She swung her legs over the bed's edge, feet touching the cold floor. The chill should have grounded her, but instead, she felt adrift. Time is fleeting. Kiron's plea echoed, a mantra for action. But what action could she possibly take? Embrace a fantasy? Risk the ridicule? The disbelief? The possibility of unraveling her own reality? Something profound, she murmured, standing now. A silent figure amidst the quiet chaos of her apartment. Profound or madness? The line between them blurred, like a horizon bleeding into an alien sky. Next steps? She voiced the question to the empty room, seeking counsel from the walls that had borne witness to her solitary life. No answers came, only the steady beating of her conflicted heart. Uncertainty, she finally conceded, wrapping her arms around herself. A new day beckoned beyond her window, offering neither solace nor solution. Can I just ignore this? But the silence that followed was its own response. She couldn't. Something profound was happening, and Samantha Wells, with all her analytical acumen and empathetic soul, stood on the cusp, teetering between doubt and destiny. Chapter 3. For days, or do I mean nights, Samantha has been consumed by the vivid image of the alien. She was both terrified and drawn to him, a mix of fear and desire at the thought of his revelation. She wanted to push the thoughts away, but they were too powerful to ignore. The conflicting emotions left her restless, unable to find peace in her own bed. Do not be afraid, the alien purred, his deep voice like velvet. I mean you no harm. Samantha sat up with a gasp, clutching the sheets to her chest. Her heart pounded as she glanced around the dim room. Empty. She was alone. It had only been a dream, again. But it had felt so real. She could still feel the ghost of his touch on her skin, sending tingles down her spine. Samantha laid back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. His name echoed in her mind. Kiron. She didn't know how she knew, only that it was as much a part of her as her own name. Kiron. When those dreams started weeks ago, she could only dismiss them as a side effect of the sci-fi marathon she'd had. But they'd only intensified, coming again and again each night like clockwork. And now she found herself craving them, aching for Kiron's visit as her eyes drifted closed each night. It was madness. She knew that. There was no such thing as aliens, no matter how vivid her imagination. Yet still, she saw him, felt him, knew him in a way she'd never known another. Samantha sighed, raking a hand through her tangled hair. She feared she was losing her grip on reality, slipping into delusion. Perhaps this life, her job, her apartment, her mundane routines, was the dream. And Kiron, with his hypnotic eyes and sensual tone, was the truth she'd soon awaken to. She shook her head, pulse racing at the thought. No. She couldn't think like that. As her breathing slowed, she came to a decision. She had to get to the bottom of this, to uncover why her mind insisted on tormenting her so. Even if the truth turned out to be more fiction than fact, she would find answers. She had to. Her sanity depended on it. Samantha woke with a gasp, her heart pounding as she bolted upright in bed. The dream. Oh God, the dream. It had seemed so real. She could still fantasize the trace of Kiron's hands on her skin, the warmth of his breath against her neck. She shivered, clutching the sheets around her. What was happening? These visions were getting out of control, seeping into her waking world until she couldn't tell what was real anymore. She had to make sense of them, even if it meant confronting things she didn't want to face. Samantha threw off the covers and padded into her living room, flipping on the lights. Her laptop was waiting on the coffee table where she'd left it, and she sank onto the sofa, fingers flying across the keys. Alien abductions, vivid dreams, mind control. The search results flooded in, but none matched her experiences. Not exactly. She dug deeper, following threads on subconscious désirés and Jungian archetypes, yet nothing rang true. With a huff of frustration, she pushed the laptop aside and leaned back, closing her eyes. There had to be an answer, some clue she was missing that could unlock the meaning behind these dreams. She was determined to find it. Samantha didn't know how long she sat there, lost in thought. But slowly, an idea began to form. A possibility too strange to consider, yet one that fit in a way nothing else had. Her eyes flew open as the truth settled over her, equal parts terrifying and intoxicating. She couldn't ignore it any longer, couldn't rationalize it away. The dreams were real, Kiron was real, and she had to find him. Samantha stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keys. Hybrid offspring. What did that even mean? She swallowed hard and began to type, searching for any mention of human-alien hybrids, of secret government experiments or extraterrestrial visitations resulting in pregnancy. The results were disturbing, stories of forced impregnation and traumatic experiences, with no solid evidence to support them. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling this was relevant to her situation. That her visions of Kiron were more than dreams. That the intensity of their encounters held deeper meaning she had only begun to grasp. Samantha shivered, hugging her arms close as if to ward off the chill settling over her. What was she getting herself into? With a surge of determination, she continued her search, sorting through wild theories and implausible claims to find any nugget of truth. It was there, buried beneath the surface. She could feel it. Hours passed in a blur of scrolling and skimming, piecing fragments together until a startling picture began to emerge. Human-alien hybrids might not just be science fiction. There were stories of secret government programs to crossbreed with extraterrestrials and develop super soldiers or psychic spies. Rumors of alien races seeking to breed with humans to save their own dying populations. Samantha sat back, stunned by the implications. By how well these disturbing possibilities aligned with her dreams. She looked at the time and winced. It was nearly dawn, and she hadn't slept at all. Exhaustion weighed on her, but she couldn't rest now, not when she was so close to answers. Kiron. She had to find him. Had to know the truth. Samantha reached for her phone, hands trembling. It was time to take the next step. Samantha scrolled through forums and chat rooms, searching for any mention of alien encounters matching her experience. Most were clearly fiction, but a few posts stood out. She found herself drawn to one in particular, written by a user named Starborn53. It described vivid dreams of a naked man with inhuman allure and intensity, who the poster believed was an extraterrestrial lover from a past life. Samantha's heart raced. This had to be more than coincidence. She typed a hurried response, spilling out the details of her own dreams and the discoveries that had led her here. The reply came within minutes. "You're not alone," Starborn53 wrote. "There are others like us who have been touched by them. If you're ready to face the truth, I can put you in contact with someone who can help." Samantha's fingers trembled over the keys. Did she dare take this final step into the unknown? Her rational mind warned of deception and delusion, but her intuition whispered of destiny. She steeled herself and typed a single word. Yes. Starborn53 provided a phone number and a name, Louise Harris. "Call her. She'll guide you from there." Samantha ended the chat and stared at the number, wondering what she might be getting into. But she had come too far to turn back now. She picked up her phone and dialed, listening to it ring with a mix of anticipation and dread. "This is Louise," a warm, husky voice answered. Samantha took a deep breath. "My name is Samantha Wells. I was told you could help me understand my dreams." "Your dreams," Louise repeated. "Tell me about them, Samantha." Encouraged by her gentle tone, Samantha described the vivid visions that had haunted her nights. the massive alien figure with piercing silver eyes, his gentle caresses, and the strange intimacy between them, the symbols and shapes that lingered at the edge of her memory upon waking. When she finished, Louise was silent for a long moment. "Your experiences are real," she said at last. "You have been touched by them, as have so many others. We are part of a secret history that most of humanity is not yet ready to face." Samantha gripped the phone, heart pounding. "A secret history?" "There are things about this universe that your governments and scientists don't yet understand," Louise explained. "Advanced extraterrestrial races with powers beyond our comprehension. Some of us have been contacted for reasons we don't fully grasp. The dreams are a way of communicating with us and preparing us for contact." "Preparing us?" Samantha echoed faintly. "You must keep an open mind," Louise cautioned. "The truths I'm about to share with you will seem extraordinary, but you'll feel in your soul that they're real. These beings have been guiding our evolution from the shadows, and the time is coming for them to emerge." Samantha leaned back against the couch, trying to steady her trembling hands. She had never imagined her search for answers might lead her to a truth so staggering in its implications. But she steeled herself and asked the question burning in her mind, "What else can you tell me about them?" Louise's voice softened as if she sensed Samantha's inner turmoil. "I know it's a lot to take in, but you're not alone. I'm here to help you on this journey of awakening." Reassured, Samantha listened with rapt attention as Louise began to share details of her own encounters and the guidance she had received to prepare for imminent contact. The hours passed swiftly, but Samantha was oblivious to the time. She peppered Louise with questions, hungry for every insight and revelation. A vast and intricate tapestry of knowledge was unfolding before her, as if a veil was being lifted from her eyes. By the end of the call, Samantha's rational mind was in tatters, but her intuition blazed with the light of truth. She knew now this was no mere delusion or deception. Her fate, and the fate of humanity itself, was tied to forces far greater than anything she had imagined. She hung up the phone in a daze and wandered to her window, gazing out at the stars that had once seemed so distant and indifferent. But she knew they were watching and waiting and guiding us to our destiny. The dreams hadn't been a curse but a gift. She was ready now to face the truth that had come knocking at the door of her subconscious and venture into the unknown. Samantha stared at the phone in her hand, her heart pounding. She had a choice to make, a path to forge. Stay in the comfort of ignorance or seek the truth, no matter the cost. She dialed the number with trembling fingers. A female voice answered. "Dr. Chen's office, how may I help you?" Samantha took a deep breath. "I'd like to schedule an appointment with the doctor. I've been having strange dreams and I think they may be memories of an alien abduction." There was a pause. "I see. Dr. Chen does have experience with abduction cases and uncovering repressed memories. Her next available appointment is Thursday at 3 p.m. Will that work with your schedule?" "Yes, that would be perfect." Samantha hung up, her palms slick with sweat. She had taken the first step down a road of no return. Come what may, she was ready to face the truth. The days crawled by as she waited for her appointment. She tried to distract herself with books and TV, but nothing could quiet her racing thoughts. What would she discover? What awaited her on the other side of this door she was opening? On Thursday, she arrived 20 minutes early at Dr. Chen's office, a spacious suite decorated in calming tones of blue and green. Soft music played as the receptionist showed her to a chair. "The doctor will be with you shortly." Samantha clutched her purse in her lap, her heart nearly pounding out of her chest. When the door opened, Dr. Chen stepped out with a warm smile. "Samantha Wells? It's a pleasure to meet you. Please come in." With trembling legs, Samantha stood and followed her into the room. The door closed behind them, sealing her fate. The truth was waiting. Chapter 4. Samantha's fingers trembled as she dialed Dr. Linden's number. Her heart pounded. What would the psychologist think when she revealed the impossible truth? After 2 rings, Dr. Linden answered. Samantha, how are you doing today? Her calm voice soothed Samantha's nerves. I'm not sure, Samantha confessed. I've uncovered something disturbing in my research. A pause. I see. Would you like to talk about it? Samantha took a deep breath. I think my dreams are real, memories, not fantasies. And there's more. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Alien abductions, hybridization programs, it's all real. Silence. Then, gently, I understand this must be very frightening for you. There's more. I have contacted an abductees support group. They directed me to a specialist called Dr. Chen. Do you think I might be going crazy? Samantha asked in a small voice. Not at all. Many people report experiences similar to yours. Dr. Linden's assurance calmed her. However, these matters can be complex. In fact, I know Dr. Chen and would encourage you to see her. Samantha nodded, though Dr. Linden couldn't see her. It may help clarify your experiences, Dr. Linden continued. But these techniques should only be attempted under the guidance of a trained professional, like Dr. Chen. Thank you, Samantha said. The psychologist's validation lifted a weight from her shoulders. She had feared ridicule, even institutionalization, but Dr. Linden had given her hope. Samantha had to know the truth, no matter how strange or terrifying it might be. The answers were locked in her mind, waiting to be freed. She steeled herself, ready to face whatever mysteries might emerge from the depths of her subconscious. Back to Dr. Chen's office, Samantha realized that was it, the point of no return. Dr. Chen rose with a warm smile. Ms. Wells, it's a pleasure to meet you. Please have a seat. Samantha sat across from the psychologist, clutching her purse in her lap. Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Of course. Dr. Linden informed me this was an urgent matter. Dr. Chen's tone was gentle and reassuring. Whenever you're ready, I'm here to listen. With a deep breath, Samantha began to speak. The words tumbled out in a rush as she described her dreams, her research, and Dr. Linden's recommendation of more specific hypnosis. Dr. Chen listened intently, nodding along. What you're describing is not uncommon. I have worked with many abductees and those who believe they are part of a hybridization program. Samantha stared. So you think I'm one of them? It's certainly possible. The vividness and recurring nature of your experiences suggests they may be memories rather than dreams. Dr. Chen paused. Hypnosis could help clarify their meaning and determine if they reflect actual events from your past. Samantha swallowed hard against the lump in her throat. Will it be painful or scary? The process is meant to be calming and gentle. You will remain in full control at all times, and we will only explore areas you feel comfortable with. Dr. Chen smiled reassuringly. Many patients find it an enlightening experience, though the information that surfaces may be emotionally difficult to process. I am here to support you through it. With a deep breath, Samantha steeled her nerves. She had to know the truth. I'm ready. Dr. Chen nodded. Then let us begin. And then guided Samantha through a relaxation exercise, her calm voice easing the tension from Samantha's body. A warm, weightless feeling enveloped her as she drifted into a trance. Now I want you to focus on the details of your dreams, Dr. Chen said softly. Picture yourself in the living room where the bright light appears. What do you see? Samantha's mind filled with the familiar scene. I'm sitting on the couch. The room goes dark, and then there's a blinding flash of light in the center of the room. Good. What happens next? Figures emerge from the light. They're humanoid, with pale skin and big black eyes. Samantha swallowed hard, her heart pounding. One of them comes closer and reaches out to touch me. Dr. Chen's voice remained steady and reassuring. There's no need to feel frightened. You are safe here with me. What does the being communicate to you? He says I have been chosen, that they need me to help with their program. I see. Do you have a sense of what this program involves? Samantha frowned, trying to discern more from the hazy memory. Something about creating hybrid children. They said it was important for the future, but I don't really understand. The session went on to confirm both Samantha and Dr. Chen's suspicions until the doctor decides that was enough for the day. Samantha slowly emerged from the trance, blinking at the bright lights of the office. She felt stunned, yet relieved, glad to finally have some of the answers, even if they were not the ones she had anticipated. Dr. Chen started, "We have uncovered important information that confirms your experiences were not mere dreams. We can schedule another session to explore further." Dr. Chen regarded her with a look of quiet understanding. "I know this is a lot to process. Please let me know if there's any way I can support you through this difficult time." Samantha nodded, a weak smile crossing her face. "Thank you, Doctor. I'm not sure I would have made it this far without your help." "You are most welcome," Dr. Chen replied. "The truth is often painful, yet liberating. Now you can work to accept what has happened and determine where you want to go from here." Samantha shifted in her seat, a flurry of questions swirling in her mind. So what now? What do people usually do in these situations? "There is no usual response," Dr. Chen said gently. "Each person's journey is unique. However, many find it helpful to connect with others who have had similar experiences. I can put you in contact with support groups if you wish." Samantha considered the offer, wondering if she was ready to open up to strangers about something so deeply personal. "Maybe in time. For the moment, I think I need to process everything on my own." Dr. Chen nodded in understanding. "That is a perfectly normal reaction. Please know that I am here for you if you need additional support or simply wish to talk through your thoughts and feelings." "Thank you," Samantha said, rising from the chair on unsteady legs. She made her way to the doorway, pausing to glance back at Dr. Chen. "I really appreciate everything you've done for me." "No worries, my dear," Dr. Chen replied with a kind smile. "Take care of yourself. We will speak again soon." Samantha stepped out into the brightly lit waiting room, sunlight filtering through the front windows. She drew in a deep breath, feeling lighter and more at peace than she had in weeks. The truth had set her free in more ways than one. She walked out to the parking lot with renewed purpose, ready to face whatever might come on the journey ahead. Days later, Samantha walked back into Dr. Chen's office, stomach fluttering with nerves. After their initial session, this one felt different, more consequential. Dr. Chen looked up from her desk, glasses perched on the edge of her nose. "Are you ready?" Samantha nodded, "As ready as I'll ever be. Please have a seat and make yourself comfortable." She sank into the plush armchair, listening to the sounds around her, the ticking clock, faint traffic outside, Dr. Chen's steady breathing. Her own breath slowed, eyelids growing heavy. "Focus on the rhythm of your breathing," Dr. Chen said softly. "Let your body relax. Your mind is calm and clear." The office seemed to fade around her as she descended into a trance. Then she was there again, the blinding light. Shadowy figures looming overhead, indistinct and menacing. A flash of silver, the pinch of a needle sliding into her arm. Kiron's voice echoed as if from a great distance. "The procedure is complete. She will begin transformation soon." Panic rose in her chest at those words. Transformation into what? Stay calm, she told herself. Observe without judgment. One figure stepped forward, features obscured by a surgical mask and cap. Gloved hands pressed against her abdomen, prodding and poking as if examining something. Her stomach. They were doing something to her stomach. The memory shattered into fragments, slipping through her mental grasp. She struggled to pull the pieces back together as Dr. Chen's voice filtered in. "It's all right, Samantha. Take your time. I am here to guide you." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. There were more memories locked within, waiting to be unlocked. She had to stay focused, had to understand. The truth was out there, hovering at the edge of her subconscious. She just needed to find the courage to face it. Samantha swallowed hard, grasping for the fraying threads of memory. There. a flash of something round and silvery, like a large coin. An emblem? A symbol of some kind? Before she could examine it further, the memory dissolved again. Frustration welled up inside her, threatening to derail the session. Dr. Chen's voice was a lifeline, pulling her back. "You're doing wonderfully, Samantha. Take a deep breath and try to remain calm. The memories will come in their own time." She breathed in slowly, then out, quieting her racing thoughts. Somewhere in the distance, a steady beeping broke the silence. Machines, monitoring her vital signs. Her vital signs. Realization struck her with the force of a lightning bolt. They were monitoring more than just her mind. Something was happening to her body. Something alien. The word triggered a cascade of images, flashing by too quickly to grasp. She struggled to slow the flow, to focus on one memory at a time. There. A glimpse of her own torso, pale flesh crisscrossed by a jagged incision. And something else. A rounded shape pushing up from beneath the skin. Pushing out. She blinked again and the memory shifted. Now she could see it clearly, protruding from the incision. A metallic orb of some kind, glinting under the bright lights. No, not an orb. An egg. They had implanted something inside her. She was certain of it now. The memory shattered into a million pieces, fragments swirling into darkness. A hollow scream echoed in the distance, ringing with terror and disbelief. It took her a moment to realize the scream was her own. Silence filled the void where her scream had been. Samantha clung to the shreds of memory, struggling to piece them together. A voice cut through the darkness, deep and resonant. "There is no need to be afraid." She blinked, and the memory came into focus once more. The jagged incision sealing itself. A strange being leaning over her, eyes glowing. Kiron. His tone was soothing yet firm. "You will be part of something greater than yourself, a new future for both our races." She latched onto those words, trying to make sense of it all. What did he mean? Another fragment surfaced, this one brighter than the rest. A symbol glowing on the wall, a spiral of intricate markings she couldn't decipher. But their meaning was clear. She had been marked, claimed. The memories shattered again. Darkness flooding her senses. She clawed her way back to the surface, back to Dr. Chen's calming voice. "Samantha, it's time to come back now." She opened her eyes with a gasp. The familiar sight of the office grounded her, dimming the chaos in her mind. Dr. Chen studied her, brow creased with concern. "How was your experience?" She faltered, unsure of how to put her revelations into words. "They did something to me. Implanted something. An egg. Or..." She trailed off again, uncertainty warring with the fragments of memory. Had it all been some strange delusion? A trick of the subconscious mind? No, she knew the truth, as impossible as it seemed. She had been chosen. She was no longer alone. Dr. Chen nodded, her expression grave. "As I suspected. You're another one, Samantha. Many abductees report similar experiences under hypnosis." "But..." Samantha shook her head, struggling for coherency. "Alien hybrids. That can't be real." "I know it sounds implausible, but we cannot dismiss what you experienced during your trance state." Dr. Chen folded her hands, regarding Samantha earnestly. "Your memories point to a phenomenon that remains unexplained. Alien abductions, and in some cases, a hybridization program to create human-alien offspring." Samantha stared at her, stunned into silence. Dr. Chen continued. "I have worked with several abductees who recalled similar details under hypnosis. Strange symbols, medical procedures, a voice telling them they have been chosen. Some even reported vivid recollections of giving birth to hybrid children." The implications were too enormous to comprehend. Samantha gripped the armrests of her chair, knuckles turning white. "This can't be happening," she whispered. But the memories were seared into her mind, as real as anything she had experienced. She knew, with a strange, bone-deep certainty, that she now harbored something alien inside her. Dr. Chen reached over and clasped her hands. I know this is difficult to accept, but you should know you're not alone. Perhaps it may help to speak with others who have gone through the same process. Others. Samantha latched onto the word, sensing it might be her only lifeline in a world turned upside down. She drew in a shaky breath and met Dr. Chen's gaze. Yes, I need to know more. Whatever this is, I have to face it. She steeled herself, pushing past the panic rising in her chest. Please, tell me about the others. I have to understand what's happening to me. Samantha stepped outside into the crisp night air, her mind reeling. Shadows lurked at the edges of her vision, as if the darkness might swallow her whole. She leaned against the wall of the building, clutching at its solidness. The implications of what she now knew threatened to overwhelm her. Alien abductions, hybrid children. She had always scoffed at such fanciful tales, dismissing them as mere science fiction. But she could no longer deny the truth her own memories had revealed. Kiron. She seized upon the name, channeling her shock into anger and purpose. The mysterious alien who had intruded upon her life, shattering her sense of safety and control. She had to find him, had to confront him, demand answers. Samantha pushed off from the wall, steel entering her spine. She had never been one to hide from the truth, no matter how strange or frightening. She would face this head-on, as she always had. The night seemed to close in around her as she made her way down the deserted street. Somewhere in the darkness, she knew he was waiting, watching. She tipped her head back, gazing up into the star-strewn sky. Somewhere out there, his world awaited. Kiron, she said softly, as if invoking his name might summon his presence. Why have you chosen me? A flash in the alleyway caught her eye, a pale glow that vanished as quickly as it appeared. She peered into the shadows, but could detect no movement. Yet she sensed she was no longer alone. A voice spoke, deep and resonant, seeming to come from every direction at once. You are ready, Samantha Wells, to face your destiny. She whirled around, heart pounding, and came face to face with Kiron. Chapter 5. Samantha hunched over her laptop, eyes scanning page after page of obscure alien anthropology texts. There, a glimmer of insight. The Xendari valued harmony above all else. She reached for her notebook and scribbled down her thoughts. Balance. Connection. Unity. Her phone buzzed with a new message. An expert she had reached out to, willing to share his knowledge. The Xendari believe all life forms are interconnected. To harm another being is to harm oneself. Samantha leaned back, deep in thought. So much was becoming clear. Kiron's gentle, persuasive manner, his determination to find a solution that benefited both their races. She tapped out a reply. Thank you. This helps more than you know. Her imagination conjured up images of Xendari ceremonies, guided by the twin suns of their homeworld, chants and music echoing across verdant fields, rituals to strengthen the bonds between families and clans. Samantha stood and stretched, joints protesting after hours of stillness. She needed to clear her mind. As she gazed out the window at the city streets below, an unexpected longing arose. To experience those ceremonies herself, to feel the richness of Xendari spirituality, to connect with others in a way she had never known. She shook her head, dismissing the fanciful thoughts. There was too much at stake to get lost in impossible daydreams. She returned to her research with renewed purpose, searching for answers to the questions that truly mattered. How would humanity react to the Xendari, and could there be a place for her in Kiron's world if she chose to follow her heart into the unknown? Samantha ran a hand through her hair, frustration mounting. Hours of searching had yielded little beyond superficial descriptions of Xendari customs and beliefs, nothing that captured their essence or revealed how an outsider might integrate into their culture. She pushed away from her desk and stood, too restless to remain still. There had to be more out there. Obscure texts, academic papers, anything that could provide insight into how the Xendari viewed family, spirituality, and their place in the universe. As if in response to her thoughts, a memory surfaced. An old bookstore she frequented, dim and dusty, filled with rare volumes on topics both bizarre and profound. Samantha grabbed her jacket and keys, a surge of hope dispelling her irritation. If anywhere held the answer she sought, it would be there. The familiar musty scent enveloped her as she entered the bookstore, a comforting presence amid the unknown. She wandered the stacks, fingers trailing across leather spines, waiting for a title to catch her eye. And there, on a top shelf, was a book so worn its title was barely legible. She stretched to pull it down, a cloud of dust swirling around her. A treatise on Xendari beliefs and rituals. Her heart raced as she opened it to find page after page describing the inner life of the Xendari in vivid detail. Samantha sank into a chair, transfixed by what she found. Poems and parables revealing the Xendari's profound connection to nature and each other. Ceremonies to honor life's turning points and bring communities together. An emphasis on harmony, openness, and... She paused, reading the passage again to be sure. Interconnectedness. To harm another being is to harm oneself. She leaned back, deep in thought. So much was becoming clear. Kiron's gentle, persuasive manner. His determination to find a solution that benefited both their races. She tapped out a reply. Thank you. This helps more than you know. Her imagination conjured up images of Xendari ceremonies, guided by the twin stars of their homeworld. Chants and music echoing across verdant fields. Rituals to strengthen the bonds between families and clans. Samantha stood and stretched, joints protesting after hours of stillness. She needed to clear her mind. As she gazed out the window at the city streets below, an unexpected longing arose. To experience those ceremonies herself. To feel the richness of Xendari spirituality. To connect with others in a way she had never known. Samantha shook her head, surprised by the strength of her longing. She had always been content with her solitary explorations, finding meaning in books and knowledge. When had that changed? She sat back down and began sketching Xendari rituals based on the descriptions in her book. An open-air amphitheater surrounded by lush greenery. Rows of participants dressed in pale green robes, hands joined and voices raised in song. At the center, a fire burned, symbols of life and renewal rising with the flames. The more she drew, the more details emerged. Intricate body paint and headdresses. Wind chimes fashioned from shells and stones. Banners in shades of teal and azure, rippling in a gentle breeze. Her heart swelled at the beauty and meaning woven into each element of Xendari spirituality. By the time she finished, her desk was covered in drawings. She gathered them up, reviewing each one to deepen her understanding. Her dreams, the artifacts, everything was connected. This was no longer academic curiosity. She yearned to embrace these beliefs and make them her own. Samantha placed a hand over her abdomen, realization dawning. This wasn't just about her anymore. She and Kiron had created new life, a bridge between their races. Her child would inherit the best of both worlds, but they would need guidance to navigate them. She was beginning to see her role in this extraordinary journey. She smiled, a surge of peace and purpose calming her restless mind. The path ahead was unclear, but she would find her way. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, imagining the twin suns of Xendar shining down on her, on them. The future unfurled before her, filled with mystery and promise. She was ready. Samantha opened her eyes and gasped. There on her desk sat a small onyx sculpture, curved lines depicting a stylized heart within a spiral. She reached out with trembling fingers, certain it hadn't been there before. As she lifted it, a warmth spread through her palm. The onyx was smooth and cool, but something within radiated energy. She turned it over, finding an inscription on the base in a language both alien and familiar. 3 words leapt out at her: love, eternity, unity. Tears welled in her eyes as realization dawned. This was no ordinary artifact. It was a gift, a message of hope from Chiron's world. She clutched it to her chest, blinking back tears of joy and wonder. In that moment, she knew with absolute certainty that she was no longer alone on this journey. The Xendari people embraced her, just as she now embraced them. She was the bridge between, and always would be. Samantha placed the sculpture on a chain around her neck, where it rested against her heart, a symbol of the connection that now bound her to Xendar itself. She smiled up at the twin suns in her imagination, bathing in their golden light. "Thank you," she whispered. She didn't know who might hear her, but she hoped her gratitude would find its way to those who had given her this precious gift, to the family she had only just discovered, and now would never lose. Her journey was just beginning. Samantha rubbed her tired eyes as the words on the screen blurred together. She had been immersed in online discussions about Xendari culture for hours, bouncing theories back and forth with other enthusiasts. "Fascinating insights," she said, stifling a yawn. "Your theory about the symbolic meaning of the lunar eclipse in their spiritual practices is brilliant." Her stomach rumbled, reminding her that she hadn't eaten since breakfast. She glanced at the clock and blinked in surprise. It was well past midnight. "I should let you go," she said. "It's getting late and we can continue this discussion another time." "Likewise, it's been a pleasure chatting with you." The researcher's enthusiasm matched her own. "Please let me know if you have any other insights into Xendari culture. I'm always eager to exchange ideas." "I will, thank you. Good night." Samantha ended the call and sat back, her mind racing with new concepts and perspectives. She glanced at the papers strewn across her desk, filled with notes from various books and her online discussions. There was still so much to learn, but she was piecing it together bit by bit. Her eyes drifted shut for a moment, and she saw the twin suns of Xendar again. She smiled, running her fingers over the onyx sculpture around her neck. She wasn't alone on this journey of discovery. The Xendari people were with her, guiding her, embracing her as one of their own. With renewed determination, Samantha opened her eyes and reached for another book. There would be time to rest another day. Tonight, there was too much knowledge to uncover, too many secrets left to find. Her thirst for understanding was insatiable, and sleep could wait. The Xendari were calling her home. Samantha blinked as sunlight streamed through her apartment window. She rubbed her eyes, disoriented for a moment, before remembering she had fallen asleep at her desk again. With a yawn, she sat up and surveyed the mess of papers around her. Her notes were barely legible, scribbled in a haze of excitement and fatigue. She shook her head, smiling at her own enthusiasm. The Xendari texts were a revelation, opening her mind to new ways of thinking and believing. As she gathered her notes, a slip of paper caught her eye. Scribbled in the margins was a series of symbols she didn't recognize. She picked it up, tracing the intricate lines with a fingertip. They were beautiful and strange, tingling with an energy she could feel in her bones. Her breath caught. These weren't random doodles. They were a message, whispered to her in a language beyond words. The Xendari were speaking through her, guiding her to a truth she was meant to find. Samantha leapt up, sending papers flying. She had to find that hidden archive. She raced out of her apartment, pulse pounding with purpose. The Xendari were calling her home. After searching for hours, she finally found a narrow alleyway behind an old bookstore, obscured by overflowing dumpsters. At the end of the alley was a rusty metal door that opened with a creak. Samantha stepped inside and gasped. Towering bookshelves filled the room, crammed with ancient Xendari texts. Symbols and carvings adorned the walls, glowing with an inner light. This was a place of power, a sanctuary of knowledge. She had found her way home. With trembling fingers, she reached for a text and opened to a random page. The symbols sprang to life, filling her mind with revelations. She saw Xendar as if she were standing upon its twin suns and understood the deepest truths of its people. Samantha smiled through tears of joy. She was no longer alone, no longer adrift between worlds. Here, she felt like one with the Xendari at last. Samantha spent days immersed in the texts, absorbing their wisdom and forging connections between Xendari beliefs and her own awakening. She began to see through the eyes of the Xendari, embracing their perspective of oneness and acceptance. Her hybrid child stirred within, resonating with the knowledge she now possessed. She realized this was not just about studying a distant culture. She was becoming a bridge between worlds. Humans and Xendari were meant to walk together, not apart. Samantha smiled, resting a hand on her belly. She was ready, and now it was time to lead others to this place of truth, this sanctuary of knowledge. The future of two worlds resting on her success. She took a deep breath. The Xendari had chosen well. Their faith in her would not be misplaced. The Xendari had called her for a reason. She would not fail them. With a determined nod, Samantha gathered her notes and texts. It was time to share her revelations and lead humanity to a future of unity. Samantha smiled, resting a hand on her belly once more. Now the future was hers to shape. Chapter 6. Samantha gripped the phone, her knuckles whitening. "Dr. Linden, I think I may be pregnant." Silence. Then, "I see. When was your last period?" Samantha swallowed. "I haven't had one since the dream started." Another pause. "This is troubling, given the nature of your experiences." Dr. Linden's voice was calm and measured. "I recommend we schedule an appointment for testing as soon as possible." Samantha closed her eyes, her chest tight. She had suspected, but hearing it said aloud made the possibility feel suddenly, frighteningly real. She opened her eyes and steadied her breath. "When can I come in?" "Are you available tomorrow afternoon?" Tomorrow. So soon, yet not soon enough. She gripped the phone tighter. "Yes, tomorrow is fine." "Excellent. I will pull some strings to have you at 2 p.m. at an initial examination. I am referring you to a friend, a gynecologist who I trust." A pause. "Try to get rest, Samantha. I know this is difficult, but we will get through this together." Samantha nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "Till tomorrow, Dr. Linden." She hung up and wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slowly back and forth. Pregnant. The word reverberated through her mind as she gazed out the window at the empty street below. How was this possible? She hadn't been with a man since... Yet, if Dr. Linden's suspicions were correct... Samantha swallowed hard, a wave of nausea passing through her. She was carrying an alien's child, that's what her instincts told. The phone rang, jolting her from her thoughts. She grabbed it, heart pounding. "Hello?" "Samantha, it's Louise." Her friend's gentle voice calmed her frayed nerves. "Did you speak with Dr. Linden?" Samantha closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I have an appointment tomorrow," she said softly. "A consultation and initial testing." A sharp intake of breath. "Oh, Samantha." Louise's voice trembled. "It will be all right. I will be there for you, whatever happens." Samantha wiped her eyes and steadied her breath. "Thanks, Louise. I really appreciate your support at this time." She gazed out the window at the empty street, a fragile hope blossoming within her. She was not alone. Samantha stepped into the gynecologist's waiting room, clutching her purse with white knuckles. Louise rose from one of the chairs, her curly red hair glowing under the fluorescent lights. "You came," Samantha breathed, relief flooding through her. Louise enfolded her in a warm hug. "Of course I came." She pulled back, grasping Samantha's shoulders. "Are you ready for this?" Samantha swallowed hard, her mouth dry. "As ready as I'll ever be." A nurse called her name and led her to an examination room. Samantha perched on the edge of the table, Louise taking a seat beside her. When the doctor entered, Louise stood. "Thank you for seeing us on such short notice." The gynecologist, a woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, nodded. Please, call me Dr. Hea. You must be Samantha. She turned to Samantha, who managed a shaky smile. Yes, thank you for seeing me. She glanced at Louise, who gave an encouraging nod. Summoning her courage, Samantha began to speak. She told the doctor about the dreams, the figure named Kiron, her certainty that she had been impregnated by an alien being. The doctor listened to it all without judgment, her expression betraying only empathy and concern. When Samantha finished, she placed a comforting hand over hers. I know this must be difficult to comprehend, much less speak about, Dr. Hea said softly. Given your symptoms, it would be wise to conduct an examination and testing to determine if you are, in fact, pregnant. She regarded Samantha seriously. Are you willing to proceed? Samantha took a deep breath, gripping Lois's hand. She had come this far. There was no turning back now. She lifted her chin, a surge of quiet strength flowing through her. Yes, I'm ready. Dr. Hea smiled reassuringly. Very well, let's begin. She proceeded with a standard exam, asking Samantha questions about her medical history and cycle along the way. Throughout it all, Louise remained by her side, a steadfast presence. When the exam was finished, Dr. Hea withdrew, giving Samantha a moment to compose herself. She returned with the test results, her expression unreadable. Samantha's heart pounded. This was the moment of truth. The exam and blood work indicate that you are indeed pregnant, she said gently. Samantha blinked, the words hitting her with the force of a revelation. Pregnant. She placed a hand over her still flat belly, warmth and wonder suffusing her. Then the implications sank in, and her wonder turned to uncertainty. She looked up at Dr. Hea, her voice small. It's not human, is it? The doctor frowned, choosing her words carefully. The fetal DNA does not match typical human genetic markers. Its origins seem to be anomalous. She sighed, meeting Samantha's eyes. I understand how difficult this must be to comprehend. I want you to know that I am here to support you in any way I can. Samantha swallowed hard against the lump in her throat. What do we do now? Dr. Hea placed a comforting hand on her arm. We have options to consider and difficult decisions to make. But for now, try to take care of yourself. This is a lot to process, and you should allow yourself time to grapple with this new reality before determining next steps. She smiled gently. You don't have to go through this alone. I will be here for you, as will your friend. Louise gave Samantha's hand a squeeze. Every step of the way. Samantha nodded, blinking back tears. She had been plunged into a reality more strange and frightening than any she could have imagined. Samantha navigated the sterile white halls of the medical facility, her senses heightened. The antiseptic smell of the place unsettled her already anxious mind. At the ultrasound room, a technician greeted her with a polite smile. Ms. Wells, I'm Cindy, here to perform your ultrasound today. Samantha swallowed hard and nodded, following Cindy into the room. She lay back on the exam table, acutely aware of the cold creeping under her thin gown. Cindy squeezed a dollop of gel on Samantha's belly and moved the transducer wand slowly across her skin. The familiar whooshing sound filled the room as a grainy image appeared on the screen. Cindy's brows furrowed, concentrating. She adjusted the wand, probing from different angles. After a few moments, she set the wand aside, wiping the gel from Samantha with a tissue. The doctor will go over the results with you, Cindy said evenly. She gave Samantha's arm a quick pat before leaving the room. Samantha sat up, clutching the gown around her. Cindy's reaction left a knot of dread in the pit of her stomach. Something wasn't right. A sharp knock rattled the door. Dr. Hea entered, her expression unreadable. Samantha searched her face for answers but found none. Just like your blood work, your ultrasounds show some unusual results. Dr. Hea began. The fetus does not appear to be human. The words hit Samantha like a blow. She struggled to draw a sharp breath, the walls of the room tilting around her. not human. She gripped the edge of the table to steady herself against a wave of dizziness. The strange dreams, the unearthly figure of Kiron, the impossible yet undeniable changes in her body. They had led her here, to a truth too bizarre and frightening to comprehend. Samantha met Dr. Haya's eyes, her voice small. "It's not human? Is this what you mean?" Dr. Haya shook her head slowly. "No. I'm afraid the genetic testing indicates the fetus is of an unknown, or between us here, of extraterrestrial origin." Samantha closed her eyes. She was indeed carrying an alien child, just like Kiron announced. What comes next? Samantha looked up at the doctor, tears blurring her vision. What exactly does come next? Dr. Haya took a seat across from her. That is entirely up to you. We can discuss your options for how to proceed with the pregnancy or termination if that is what you choose. This is your decision. Samantha shook her head. I don't know if I can make this decision. You don't have to go through this alone, the doctor said. I will refer you back to Dr. Linden, who has experience in cases like yours. And there are support groups that can offer guidance. Support groups. Samantha latched onto the words. Others who had endured the same impossible ordeal. She wasn't alone. Samantha managed a shaky breath. She placed her hand over her still flat belly, a fierce protectiveness surging through her. She didn't know how or why, but she knew with sudden certainty that she needed to carry this pregnancy to term, alien or not. She raised her eyes to Dr. Haya. Yes, please. I need to speak with them. I have to see this through. For the baby's sake, and my own. Samantha stumbled from Dr. Linden's office, clutching Louise's arm for support. Her head spun with the impossible news. Pregnant, with an alien child. Louise guided her to a bench in the waiting room. Breathe, Samantha. I know it's a shock, but we're here for you. All of us. Samantha dropped onto the bench. How is this possible? I'm carrying an alien baby. This can't be real. I know it seems impossible. Louise sat beside her, rubbing her back in slow circles. But you're not alone. Others have been through this too. You mean others have actually given birth to alien babies? Samantha's voice rose in pitch, drawing curious glances from others in the waiting room. She lowered her voice, leaning closer to Louise. How did that turn out? The births were difficult, but the babies were healthy. As hybrids, they developed at an accelerated rate. But they were normal, healthy children in every other way. Samantha pressed her hands to her face, darkness flickering at the edges of her thoughts. This could destroy everything. If the truth comes out, we won't let that happen. Louise grasped her hands, squeezing them tight. The abductees support group has resources and connections. We'll protect you and the baby. You're not alone in this, Samantha. Warmth bloomed in Samantha's chest, chasing back the shadows. She wasn't alone. She had Louise and the others. A fierce surge of protectiveness flowed through her once more as she thought of the new life inside her. Alien or not, this was her child. She raised her eyes to meet Louise's determined gaze. I have to see this through, for the baby's sake, and my own. Samantha stared out the window of Louise's car as the city streets slid by, lost in thought. She rested a hand on her still flat belly, wondering if she was ready for the difficult path ahead. You're going to be a great mother, Louise said softly, startling her from her reverie. No matter what challenges come, I know you'll do whatever it takes to protect your child. Samantha offered a wan smile. I hope you're right. I just wish I had some idea of what's to come, of how difficult this pregnancy might be, or how fast the baby will develop, or... She trailed off with a sigh. So many unknowns, each bringing its own wave of anxiety and fear. "We'll get through this together," Louise said. "And there's always Kiron. Maybe it's time you reached out to him again, asked him to provide more details about what you can expect." Samantha tensed at the suggestion, old anger flickering to life. The ambassador had put her in this position, then disappeared without another word. But Louise was right. If anyone had answers, it was him. She needed to confront him, demand the truth about what was to come. "You're right," she said, meeting Louise's gaze. "It's time I got answers. I won't be kept in the dark about my own pregnancy. Kiron owes me that much." Louise's lips curved into a smile. "That's the spirit. You've got this, Samantha." Chapter 7. Samantha stared at the phone in her hands, heart pounding. She calls Louise's number. The phone only rang 3 times. "Samantha, I've been waiting for your call." A wave of relief washed over her. "You knew I was going to call?" "Of course." Louise's voice was warm and reassuring. "Come meet the others. We can help you." Samantha glanced around her apartment, which had been suffocating, her mind spinning with unanswered questions. "Yes," she said softly. "Let's do it." The address Louise provided led her to an old warehouse downtown. Samantha walked through a heavy metal door into a vast, open space. A dozen other women inside turned to face her, a mix of ages and races, weary eyes that had seen too much. Yet, despite their haunted expressions, they shared a fierce bond in the way they stood united, protecting each other. Louise stepped forward, hands extended in welcome. "Samantha, we've been waiting for you." Samantha hesitated a little near the entrance, nerves twisting in her stomach. Those were strangers, after all. Strangers who knew her deepest secret. Louise grasped her hands. "Come in. We don't bite, I promise." Her tone was light, easing Samantha's anxiety. Samantha allowed Louise to guide her into the room. The others watched her with curiosity, a few offering smiles. She saw empathy in their gazes, a shared experience that transcended words. "Everyone, this is Samantha," Louise announced. "Samantha, meet your new friends and partners in crime." Partners in crime. Samantha blinked at the phrase, wondering what Louise meant. But she was distracted by a young woman stepping forward, blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. "I'm Jade," she said. "It's wonderful to meet you, Samantha. Louise told us you might be joining us soon." "She did?" Samantha frowned at Louise, who simply shrugged. "I had a feeling you'd come around," Louise said, "especially after your recent encounter." Samantha's hand flew to her stomach at the mention of her encounter, her secret no longer hidden. She gazed around at the group, noting the lack of judgment in their eyes. Only understanding. "How did you know?" she asked softly. "About the baby?" "We've been through it all before," Jade replied, a wistful smile crossing her lips. "Dreams, abductions, hybrid children. All of it, Samantha." Samantha took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. It was time to share the truth she had kept locked away, afraid of how others might react. But this group was different. They knew. They understood in a way no one else could. "I'm pregnant," she said softly, "by one of them. An alien." She shook her head, laughing weakly. "I can't believe I'm even saying this out loud." "We know how strange it seems at first," Jade said gently. "But you'll get used to it, like we all did. This is your new normal now, as unbelievable as it seems." "How do you get used to something like this?" Samantha asked. "Carrying an alien's baby, not knowing what might happen. I'm terrified of the unknown." "Of course you are," Louise said. "We all were, but we're all here for each other." Jade nodded. "My daughter is 3 years old now, the most beautiful little girl, with her father's eyes." A soft smile lit her face at the memory. It was hard at first, not knowing how she might turn out. But she's perfect in every way, and I wouldn't trade her for anything. You mean your daughter is— Samantha stared at Jade in wonder. She's half alien? She is, Jade said. A perfect blend of both worlds. Yours will be too. You'll see. Samantha placed her hands over her still flat belly, imagining the life growing inside. Half human, half alien. A perfect blend, like Jade said. The fears didn't disappear completely, but they lessened in the light of Jade's experience. If she could raise a hybrid child, so could Samantha. She wasn't alone. Thank you, she whispered, for sharing that with me, for giving me another perspective. Jade smiled, squeezing her hand. That's what we're here for, to share the truth and reassure each other. Samantha took a deep breath, steadying her nerves. It was time to take the next step. Louise, you said I should call out to Kiron to ask if the baby is really his. Louise nodded. The best way to confront the truth is by confronting your chosen mate. Call him out in your thoughts. Mentalize him. At this point, if Kiron is the father, he may appear to you in his physical state. You can ask him everything directly. Back in her apartment that night, Samantha closed her eyes, picturing Kiron in her mind. His luminous eyes, his sculpted form, the deep timbre of his voice. She focused her thoughts, calling out to him through the connection they seemed to share. Kiron, I have to know the truth. Is this baby really yours? There was a burst of light behind her eyelids, and a now familiar voice echoed in her mind. Samantha, you have summoned me, so I have come. The child you carry is of Xendari blood. You have been gifted with a new future. Her eyes flew open as a wave of warmth suffused her body. Kiron was actually standing before her, as real and solid as any human man. But his eyes glowed with an unearthly light, and his smile held secrets from a distant world. It's true then, she breathed. I'm really pregnant with your child. Our child, Kiron corrected gently, cupping her face in his hands. The firstborn of our relationship. With your consent, we will be joined forever as one. Samantha leaned into his touch and sunk into his embrace, as Kiron's lips came closer to hers. She had found her future in the arms of an alien lover. This time she was sure it was all real. Samantha wakes up and calls Louise before even making the coffee. This evening's meeting with the support group would be exciting. For all. We've been researching historical accounts of alien contact, and there are more stories like ours than you might think. Secret hybrid breeding programs, telepathic communication, even full-blown romantic relationships with extraterrestrial beings. Indeed, Samantha echoed softly as the group's mentor speaks, the words resonating within her more than ever. A woman with fiery red hair spoke up, her eyes alight with purpose. My encounters with the Zalorians have given me access to their advanced technology. I've been using biosensors to monitor the development of my own hybrid child. If you'd like, I can do the same for you. Samantha stared at the woman, stunned by the offer and its implications. To gain insight into her pregnancy, glimpse the new life inside her, and understand its alien heritage. She couldn't imagine a greater gift. I'd be honored, she said, emotion thickening her voice, to see my baby and know the truth of what's to come. The red-haired woman smiled. Then it settled. We look out for each other here. This is what the group is all about. The discussion then turned to the challenges of raising hybrid children in a world so different from their own. They'll have abilities far beyond human norms, Louise said gravely. We'll need to help them navigate the complexities of fitting in, while also embracing their uniqueness. Samantha frowned, thinking of her child's future. Will they even be accepted? What if people react with fear and prejudice? A valid concern, Louise sighed, which is why we must stand united. Our children will have each other, and the knowledge that they are not alone. She lifted her gaze, meeting the determined expressions of the others. The women exchanged smiles, a silent pact formed. Their hybrid children would never walk alone. They had vowed to see to that, as fiercely as any mother's love. Samantha entered her apartment, still buzzing with energy from the group meeting. A newfound sense of purpose filled her, chasing away the last vestiges of doubt and uncertainty. She closed her eyes, sensing the life within her. A spark of awareness ignited between them, as if her baby understood the change in her emotions. "We are ready, my little one. Whatever comes, we will face it together." "Soon," she whispered. "But there is something I must do first." Samantha concentrated, focusing her thoughts. "Kiron," she called out, demanding his presence. There was a shimmer in the air before her, and Kiron materialized. His gaze sharpened as he took in her stance, hands resting over the swell of her belly. She could sense his approval and a hint of pride. "You have awakened, my love," he said, his voice a deep rumble. "I knew you would find your strength in time." "No more hiding," Samantha said. "No more waiting in the shadows. I have claimed my fate, and the fate of our child." Chiron's eyes glowed, bright with promise. "As you wish, my heart. Our time has come at last." He reached for her, hands closing over hers. A surge of rightness flowed through their joined touch, a sense of two lives and destinies intertwined. Samantha gazed up at the alien who was to be her mate, her protector, the father of her child, and she smiled. Chapter 8. Samantha sat at the corner table in the dimly lit cafe, her shoulders hunched as she nursed a cup of tea between trembling hands. Across from her, Daniel's piercing blue eyes studied her intently, while Zara's gaze held a mix of empathy and understanding. Samantha took a deep, shuddering breath, steeling herself to begin. "It started 3 months ago," she begins. "When I woke, I was convinced it was just a nightmare, but then the dreams reappeared again and again," Zara finished gently. Samantha nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Only, they didn't feel like dreams. They felt more vivid, more real, and when I woke, I just knew." Her hand drifted almost unconsciously to her still flat belly. Daniel leaned forward, brow furrowed. Knew what? Samantha met his gaze. "That I was pregnant," she whispered. "And that the father wasn't human." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Daniel's eyes narrowed as he processed Samantha's words. "Not human? You mean one of them?" He chose his words carefully, not wanting to upset her further. Samantha nodded. "I didn't want this," she let out. "I never asked for any of it." Daniel's expression softened. "I know, we all know, my dear." Samantha managed a small, grateful smile in return. Across the table, Zara continued to observe them both in silence, her piercing eyes revealing nothing of her own inner thoughts. She waited patiently for her turn. Samantha took a deep breath and continued her story. Samantha's voice quivered and she paused to take a sip of water. Daniel and Zara waited patiently, exchanging a knowing glance between them. "The last dream was the most intense. I was back in the room, restrained on the table. One of the figures leaned over me, and I could see its face clearly. White skin, obsidian eyes. It felt so human." She hesitated, her cheeks flushing. "It touched me. Here." Samantha placed a hand on her lower abdomen. "And then I felt something pass into me. When I woke up, I just knew. I was pregnant." Silence descended on the table once more. Samantha kept her gaze lowered, unable to meet their eyes. Finally, Daniel cleared his throat and gave her a sad smile. "I think it's time I told you my story." Daniel took a deep breath before continuing. "I was never abducted or part of their breeding program, but I've dedicated my life to studying these encounters and helping people like you make sense of it all." He paused, gauging their reactions. Samantha and Zara sat very still, enraptured. "5 years ago, I had a breakthrough. I was able to establish rudimentary communication with one of them through an old radio telescope array. It started with simple mathematical proofs sent back and forth, but over time, we developed a basic communication. Samantha gasped softly. Zara's eyes narrowed in scrutiny. I won't go into the details now, but the gist of it was this. They didn't come here just to experiment on humans. Their motivations are more complex than that. Daniel leaned in, his voice dropping to a near whisper. They're building a race, a hybrid race. They need us, our human DNA, to perpetuate their own kind. And for that, they must be capable of surviving on Earth. He sat back, letting the weight of his words sink in. The two women exchanged uneasy glances. After a moment, Zara spoke up, her voice soft but unwavering. I think it's my turn now. Zara took a deep breath before beginning her story. When they first took me, I was terrified. I thought I would never see my family again. She paused, old pain shadowing her eyes. But when I woke up back in my bed the next morning, I knew something was different. I felt changed, somehow. Samantha nodded in understanding. She too had felt the same. Over the next few weeks, I started having the dreams. Zara continued. There was this presence in my mind, comforting me, reassuring me. At first, I thought I was going crazy, but eventually I realized it was him, the one they had chosen to be my mate. Zara's voice took on a faraway quality as she described her alien lover, his gentle wisdom, his curiosity about human culture and emotions, how he soothed her fears and forged a psychic bond that gave her strength. Samantha listened intently, mesmerized. Glancing at Daniel, she saw a knowing look in his eyes. Clearly, there were no secrets between those who had lived through this experience. I know you both understand, Zara finished softly. We have a duty now, to our children, and to the future. Whatever trials come, we'll face them together. The three sat in silence, drawing courage from their newfound kinship. Around them, the cafe buzzed with activity. The espresso machine hissed. Customers laughed and chatted. But at their little table, the very air felt thick with emotion. Samantha let out a long, slow breath as Zara finished speaking. A heavy silence descended on their table, punctuated only by the low hum of other patrons' conversations around them. She glanced down at her still flat stomach, contemplating the new life growing there. A life that was part human, part something, other. The weight of that knowledge sat heavy on her shoulders. I still can't believe this is real sometimes, she said quietly. That I'm carrying a hybrid inside me. Daniel nodded, his brow furrowed. I know. It's a lot to take in. A big responsibility. What will they be like, our children? Zara whispered. Will they have special abilities? Will they be accepted here on Earth? No one had the answers, but the shared unknown bonded them together. Samantha met Zara in Daniel's eyes, a hint of a smile on her lips. We'll figure this out, she said firmly, one step at a time. The three exchanged resolute nods, hands clasped together on the table. United in purpose, they turned their thoughts to the extraordinary path that lay ahead. The sun was starting to set outside, casting an orange glow across the cafe. Samantha took a deep breath as she stood up from the table, the others following suit. I should get going, she said, glancing at her watch. But this was really nice. We should do it again soon. Definitely, Daniel agreed. Maybe we can get the whole group together next time. Zara gave a small smile and squeezed Samantha's hand. Call me if you need anything, day or night. Samantha was touched by the sentiment. For so long she had felt isolated in her experience. But now there were people who understood. People going through the same strange journey. She stepped outside into the early evening air, Zara and Daniel close behind. On the horizon, the first few stars were starting to peek out in the dusky sky. Chapter 9. Samantha opened her eyes to find herself surrounded by violet grass stretching as far as the eye could see. The sky glowed with shades of lavender and plum, 2 moons hovering in the distance. Kiron stood before her, pale and radiant against the alien landscape. "Welcome to Xendari," he said, extending a hand. His voice resonated through her, stirring a mix of wonder and longing. She reached for his hand, warmth flooding her body at his touch. "Is this real?" "As real as any dream can be." Kiron smiled, leading her through the field. "Your mind has created a bridge between our worlds, allowing you to experience mine in a way that transcends physical form." "It's beautiful." Samantha breathed in the sweet scent of alien blossoms, dazzled by the vibrant colors. "Everything seems so alive." "Our world teems with energy and magic." Kiron gazed at the twin moons, his eyes glowing. "We have harnessed its power for our technology and way of life, but its true gifts lie in fostering creativity and passion." Samantha leaned into him, lacing her fingers with his. "I can feel it flowing through me, like an electric current." Kiron stopped, turning to face her. He caressed her cheek, his touch igniting sparks along her skin. "As I feel your energy flowing into me, my darling one, our souls have become as intertwined as our worlds." Joy and wonder mingled within Samantha, along with a deepening desire. She reached up and drew Chiron's face to hers, losing herself in the warmth and radiance of his kiss. For a moment, time itself seemed to stand still. She was floating, drifting, as weightless as the lavender grass swaying around them. When the kiss ended, Samantha gazed up at the twin stars, tears glistening in her eyes. "I don't want to leave this place. I want to stay here with you." "And so you shall, my love." Kiron smiled, enfolding her in his arms. "For we have transcended the boundaries of the dreaming world, and soon you will come to me in waking life as well." Samantha nestled against him, savoring the peaceful warmth and security of his embrace. A sense of joy and wonder filled her, along with a profound gratitude for this chance to find her soul's true home. Samantha awoke to sunlight streaming through her window, and for a moment she was disoriented, unable to discern between waking life and dreams. Then she felt it, a warmth surrounding her, as if invisible arms were holding her close. A smile lit her face as she realized Kiron's presence had followed her into the waking world. She lay there basking in the glow of his energy, her heart overflowing with love and gratitude. This was no longer simply a dream or fantasy. Their connection was real, transcending the boundaries of worlds and realities. The phone rang, startling her out of her reverie. Samantha answered to find her best friend Jenny on the other end, chattering excitedly about her new boyfriend. Samantha made the appropriate responses, but her mind was elsewhere. She couldn't wait to slip back into dreams and lose herself in Chiron's embrace once more. That evening, she lit some candles, put on soft music, and settled into bed, willing her mind to quiet so she could journey to that tranquil inner world where Kiron awaited. At last, she felt the now familiar warmth and slipped into a deep sleep. When she opened her eyes, she found herself on a beach at twilight, the sky awash in vibrant colors as twin moons rose over the horizon. Kiron emerged from the shadows, his smile lighting up the dimming sky. He hurried to her side and enfolded her in his arms. "My darling, we are together again." Samantha sighed and melted into his embrace, all her cares and worries dissolving in the warmth and radiance of his love. Here in this place between worlds, they were free to be together with no barriers remaining to keep them apart. She gazed up at Kiron, her heart overflowing. "I never want to leave this place. I want to stay here in your arms now and always." Kiron smiled, his eyes glowing with love and tenderness. "So it shall be, my darling. Our souls are as one, transcending all boundaries of time and space. We shall never truly be apart." Samantha nestled closer, finding her home in the shelter of his arms. A profound peace settled over her as their energies merged and twined, souls and worlds intertwining. Here in this place beyond all else, they had found their heaven. Kiron led Samantha along the shore, their bare feet leaving imprints in the damp sand. The twin moons illuminated a path before them, their silvery light shimmering across the waves. "This place is but a reflection of my homeworld," Kiron said. "A glimpse into the wonders that await you, should you choose to join me there." Samantha gazed around in awe, enchanted by the beauty surrounding them. "It's like nothing I've ever known." She smiled up at Kiron, her heart overflowing with love and wonder. "I want to see it all." "And so you shall, my darling." Kiron squeezed her hand, his touch emanating warmth and comfort. "But first, there are things you must understand about my people, and the future we hope to build together." Samantha listened with rapt attention as Kiron wove tales of Xendari's history, culture, and dwindling population. Her heart ached at the thought of his world dying, even as it swelled with joy at the prospect of a new beginning with Kiron at her side. "We have long studied your species," Kiron said, "searching for compatible matches to ensure the survival of my race. But never did we anticipate finding love along the way." He stopped and turned to Samantha, cupping her face in his hands. "You were not meant to be, yet you are the missing piece of my soul. Because of you, I have found meaning and purpose again. You have given me hope when all seemed lost." Tears welled in Samantha's eyes as she gazed up at Kiron. "As you have given me love, when I never dreamed such depths existed." She smiled through her tears, heart overflowing. "Together, we will build a future and a family. You will never be alone again." Kiron enfolded Samantha in his embrace, their love transcending all boundaries as their souls merged into one. The twin moons shone down in silent approbation, bathing them in silvery light as a new forever unfolded before them. Samantha awoke with tears on her cheeks, the memory of Kiron's embrace lingering. She touched her lips, recalling the sweetness of his kiss, and smiled. It had felt so real, as if they were truly together, walking hand in hand along an alien shore. She rose and went to her window, gazing out at the waking city. Somewhere out there, Kiron was waiting for her. The thought filled her with warmth and longing. They were bonded now, their love transcending the boundaries of dreams and distance. The phone rang, startling Samantha from her reverie. She hurried to answer, heart skipping a beat. "Hello?" "Samantha." The familiar baritone voice resonated through her, stirring joy and desire. "It's about time we meet in person, my love." Samantha's pulse raced. After all they had shared, she longed to be with Kiron, to lose herself in his embrace and the depths of his glowing eyes. "Yes, of course. When and where?" "I will come to you," Kiron replied. "It is only fitting, as you have entered my world. I will arrive within the hour. Please have no fear. You know we have a bond that transcends all else, my love." "I know," Samantha whispered, tears threatening again. "I'll be waiting for you." She hung up the phone, heart overflowing with emotion. Soon, she would be with Kiron at last. Their new life together was about to begin. Samantha hurried to freshen up, wanting to look her best for Kiron. She chose a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, hoping he would find her beautiful. A knock sounded at her door exactly 1 hour later. Samantha took a deep breath to steady her nerves before opening the door. Kiron stood before her, as striking as he had appeared in her dreams. His alabaster skin seemed to glow, accentuating his finely sculpted features. His eyes shone with warmth and love as he gazed at her, stirring longing inside her. "Samantha," he said in his rich baritone, "you look even more radiant than I expected." He took her hands, raising them to his lips. His kiss seared her skin, eliciting a soft gasp. Heat suffused her as she peered up at him through half-lidded eyes. "And you are as captivating as always." Kiron drew her into his embrace. Samantha melted against him, savoring the solid warmth of his body and his intoxicating scent. She had yearned for this, to lose herself in him. He lifted her chin, gazing into her eyes. "Our future awaits, my love. But first, I must have you." His lips claimed hers in a searing kiss that ignited her passion. Samantha clung to him, heart pounding with desire. The world seemed to fade around them until only Kiron remained, her anchor, her everything. He lifted her into his arms and carried her to the bedroom, their lips still joined. Kiron laid her on the bed, his glowing eyes drinking in her form. "So beautiful," he murmured, "and soon you will be mine forever." Heat suffused Samantha as Kiron began undressing her with slow, deliberate movements. His hands seared her skin, igniting a fire that consumed her senses. She reached for him, craving the feel of his body against hers. Kiron gazed down at her, eyes smoldering. "Patience, my love. I mean to savor every moment with you." Samantha trembled with longing as Kiron continued his sensual exploration. At last, he moved over her, skin against skin, and claimed her mouth in a deep, passionate kiss. She clung to him, heart overflowing with love and desire. After dreaming of this for so long, Kiron was hers at last. Their souls had already joined. Now their bodies were following suit. Samantha gave herself over to the rapture of their union, transcending the boundaries of reality. They were one. The next day, Samantha awoke with lingering warmth on her skin and a smile on her lips. She stretched, savoring the pleasant ache in her muscles, a reminder of a passionate encounter. Chiron's presence surrounded her, a comfort she carried throughout her daily routine. His whispered words echoed in her mind. "Soon, you will be mine, forever." The promise filled her with joy and anticipation. Though they were worlds apart, Samantha felt as close to Kiron as if he were lying beside her. Their bond transcended the barriers of space and time, binding them in a love eternal. Nightfall couldn't come soon enough. Samantha prepared for bed with care, wanting to look her best for Kiron. At last, she drifted off to sleep, eager to be reunited with her alien lover. The dream realm opened before her, a reflection of her deepest desires. Kiron stood again on the beach, his skin glowing in the soft light of twilight. Samantha ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. "You came to me last night," she breathed, tears of joy stinging her eyes. "I will always come for you," Kiron murmured, cupping her face in his hands. "We are destined to be together, my love, in this life and beyond." His lips claimed hers in a searing kiss that reignited the fires of passion. Samantha melted against him, heart overflowing with love and desire. The dream world faded around them as they came together, transcending reality in their rapturous embrace. They were one once more. Samantha opened her eyes feeling exhausted, just to find herself surrounded by the vibrant wildflowers of a lush alien garden. The twin stars of Xendari bathed the land in a warm golden glow. Kiron stood before her, hand extended in welcome. "You have come at last to my world," he said, eyes glowing with love and pride. Samantha took his hand, marveling at the sensation of standing in this exotic place. "Is this real?" she asked, wonder tinging her voice. "As real as our love." Kiron drew her close and kissed her deeply, erasing any doubt from her mind. Laughter bubbled up inside Samantha as Kiron spun her around the garden, their steps perfectly in tune. She had never felt so free and alive, as if anything were possible in this realm they now shared. "Here we can be together always," Kiron said, guiding her through an intricate dance. "No barriers remain between us anymore. Our souls are intertwined for eternity." Samantha gazed into his luminous eyes, seeing her own joy reflected within their depths. "I never want to wake from this dream," she confessed. "You shall not wake, as this is not a dream anymore. I have taken you while you were sleeping." Kiron dipped her low, the flowers brushing against her skin. "As long as we're together," Samantha said, "anywhere would be paradise." Kiron drew her up and into his embrace once more. "Then paradise is ours, now and forever." Samantha reluctantly opened her eyes back in her room. She felt the lingering warmth of Kiron's embrace and heard his parting words echo in her mind. "Until we meet again, my darling one." A wistful smile curved her lips at the memory of their dance in the garden. Chiron's promise of a life together, unbound by the constraints of time and space, filled her with a profound sense of peace. Samantha rose and went to the window, gazing out at the golden sunrise. Somewhere amidst the stars, she sensed Kiron's presence, as constant and enduring as the sun itself. They were joined across the light years, their love burning as brightly as any sun. She placed her hand on the glass, imagining she could feel the warmth of his touch through the barrier that separated them. Kiron's voice whispered in her mind, both soothing and compelling. "You shall not wake, as this is not a dream anymore." She gazed out at the new dawn with a heart full of hope, eagerly awaiting the day when Kiron would come to take her home at last. Chapter 10. The buzz of Samantha's phone jerked her from sleep. She blinked groggily at the barrage of notifications flooding the screen. Missed calls, texts, social media alerts. Her heart thudded as she scrolled through the messages. Strangers were asking invasive questions, commenting, speculating. How did they find out? She jumped from bed and rushed to her laptop, fingers trembling. There. An article exposing her secret. Already gone viral. Panic rose in her chest. She had to contain this, now. Samantha called her lawyer, pacing as the line rang. "It's out. Everyone knows." "Stay calm," the lawyer said. "We'll issue a statement asserting your right to privacy. This will blow over." "You don't understand. They're already judging me, questioning." She took a shaky breath. "Who the father is." Silence. Then, "I see. Given the circumstances, this reaction is not entirely unexpected, but that doesn't make it any less inappropriate or intrusive." The lawyer's reassurance eased her panic, if only slightly. She was right. Samantha had known this day might come, and she was ready. She would face the consequences with courage. Protect her child. "We will get through this," the lawyer said gently. Samantha ended the call and steeled herself. She began drafting a statement, choosing her words carefully. This was not a secret she could contain, nor a judgment she could escape. But she would not let strangers rob her of what mattered most. She would tell her truth, on her own terms. She owed her child that much. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, conviction hardening her resolve with every word. Let them speculate and judge as they would. When she finished, Samantha recorded a video, gazing directly into the camera. She spoke not with anger or defiance, but sincerity, standing firm in her choice. She uploaded the video and waited, anxiety twisting inside. Then they came. Messages of support, followers and friends rallying around her, strangers voicing empathy. Samantha breathed deeply, tension easing for the first time. She was ready. Her truth was out, and she did not stand alone. The road ahead would not be easy, but she had found her courage. And for now, that was enough. Samantha's heart raced as she scrolled through messages, her secret exposed. Panic rose in her chest. She leapt from bed and rushed to her laptop, fingers flying across the keys. There. An anonymous post spreading like wildfire, speculating about her pregnancy, her most private secret, now fodder for strangers. Samantha's stomach twisted into knots. How had this happened? She had been so careful. Only a handful of people knew the truth. Betrayal and confusion warred inside her as she skimmed the comments. Invasive questions. Hurtful judgments. She slammed the laptop shut, breath coming fast. Hands trembling, she fumbled for her phone and dialed her lawyer. "It's out," she said, voice trembling. "My secret. It's everywhere. I don't know how, but—" "Stay calm," the lawyer said. "We knew this was a possibility. We have a statement prepared. I will issue a takedown notice for the original post and any outlets who have picked up the story." A sob caught in Samantha's throat. "But people are already talking, speculating, judging me. I don't know if I can—" "You can and you will," the lawyer said firmly. "This is not your fault. We will protect your privacy to the full extent of the law. But we also need to take control of the narrative." Samantha squeezed her eyes shut, trying to steady her breathing. The lawyer. Her heart pounded as she gazed at the messages flooding her phone. Her secret was out. Panic surged through her as she leapt from bed and raced to her laptop. There, an anonymous post spreading like wildfire, speculating about her pregnancy. Her stomach twisted into knots. Only a handful of people knew the truth. How had this happened? Betrayal and confusion warred inside her as she skimmed the comments. Invasive questions, hurtful judgments. She slammed the laptop shut, breath coming fast. Hands trembling, she dialed her lawyer. "It's out," she said, voice trembling. "My secret. It's everywhere. I don't know how, but—" "Stay calm," the lawyer said. "We knew this was a possibility. We have a statement prepared. I will issue takedown notices for the original post and any outlets who have picked up the story." A sob caught in Samantha's throat. "But people are already talking, speculating, judging me. I don't know if I can—" "You can and you will," the lawyer said firmly. "This is not your fault. We will protect your privacy to the full extent of the law, but we also need to take control of the narrative." Samantha squeezed her eyes shut, breath coming fast. The lawyer was right. She had known this day might come, and she was ready. She would face the consequences with courage, protect her child. "We will get through this," the lawyer said gently. Samantha ended the call and steeled herself. She began drafting a statement, choosing her words carefully. This was not a secret she could contain, nor a judgment she could escape. But she would not let strangers rob her of what mattered most. She would tell her truth on her own terms. She owed her child that much. Samantha's fingers flew across the keyboard as she searched for the source of the leak. Article after article popped up, each echoing the same speculative claims. Her stomach twisted into knots as she scrolled through the comments, filled with prying questions and hurtful accusations. Strangers picked apart the details of her life, judging her for choices they couldn't possibly understand. With a sob, she slammed the laptop shut. She couldn't bear to read another word. But she knew the truth. There was no containing this. Her secret had spread like wildfire, consuming her privacy and sense of safety. Samantha took a shaky breath and opened her laptop once more. She had to stay strong, fight to regain control of her own narrative before these stories spiraled into outright lies. She began drafting a statement, carefully choosing her words to convey the truth in her own voice. This was not a secret she could hide, nor a judgment she could escape. But she would not let fear silence her. She owed it to herself and her child to tell their story on her own terms, to face the consequences with courage and protect what mattered most. With trembling fingers, Samantha hit publish, releasing her statement into the online vortex. She watched with a mix of dread and defiance as reactions poured in, a deluge of comments both cruel and kind. But among them, she found glimpses of hope. Strangers offering empathy and support, reminding her that she was not alone. Their words lit a fire inside her, fueling her determination. She took a deep breath and steeled herself for the challenges ahead. The path was unclear, but her goal was not. She would navigate each obstacle with quiet bravery. No matter what came, she was ready. Her secret was out, but her voice remained her own. She would tell her story on her own terms and protect her child at any cost. Samantha's hands trembled as she scrolled through comments, each word a dagger piercing her composure. Strangers speculated about her pregnancy, passing judgment and asking invasive questions as if they had a right to her private life. The weight of their prying eyes bore down on her, suffocating in its intensity. She struggled for breath, torn between anger and anguish. How dare they? But their cruelty cut deep, sharpened by her own self-doubts and fears. With tears blurring her vision, she pushed away from her laptop. She needed help, guidance, a shield against this media storm, and a strategy to regain control of her narrative. Samantha reached for her phone, fingers dialing a familiar number. "I need to speak with Claudia, now." Her voice shook, but her tone brooked no argument. Within minutes, her lawyer was on the line, professional and poised as always. "I've seen the reports. How are you holding up?" Genuine concern edged her brisk tone. "I don't know how to handle this." Samantha gripped the phone, knuckles white. They're twisting everything, and people actually believe their lies. Unfortunately, sensationalism sells. Claudia's sigh hissed through the line. We need to counter these stories and reframe the narrative before opinions solidify. A statement from you, honest but composed, may help shift the conversation to the facts. I have already published my version of it all. What else can I share without jeopardizing my privacy? Samantha asked, hesitant. You control how much to disclose. Focus on your truth. You're pregnant, and you intend to handle this privately. Claudia's voice softened. Express yourself in your own words. Share what feels right, and set clear boundaries about what remains private. You owe the public nothing beyond the truth. Samantha took a deep, steadying breath. Claudia was right. She needed to face the media and tell her story, not hide from judgment or let fear silence her voice. Her secret was out, but her truth remained her own. It was time to speak up. Samantha unplugged her Wi-Fi router and turned off her phone, severing the lines of communication that had become conduits for cruelty. Silence enveloped her as the buzz of notifications faded, a reprieve from the clamor of opinions that threatened to drown out her inner voice. Alone at last, she sank onto her sofa and closed her eyes. She had now to concentrate on the upcoming media assault on her most intimate life. How had her life spun so far out of control? She thought of her child, an innocent life now embroiled in a media circus not of their making. The crushing weight of responsibility threatened to overwhelm her. A lone woman battling forces beyond her comprehension. Yet beneath the fear and doubt, a flicker of defiance remained. She placed a hand on her belly, a fierce surge of protectiveness awakening within her. She would shield this new life from the eyes of a prying world, guarding their privacy even if it meant facing judgment alone. Her tears slowed, then stilled as steely resolve took root. She knew what she needed to do, not for fame or fortune or the fickle tide of public opinion, but for the family she was determined to build. A family that would become her sanctuary in a world grown harsh and unfamiliar. Samantha took a deep, steadying breath and opened her eyes. The path ahead was unclear, but her goal was not. She would speak her truth, then retreat from the spotlight to focus on what really mattered, preparing for the new life inside her and their future with Kiron in Xendari. The phone buzzed, startling Samantha from her reverie. She eyed it warily, steeling herself for another deluge of messages. But this was a single call, the name Louise Harris flashing across the screen. Samantha answered with a trembling hand. Louise? I've been trying to reach you for days, Louise complained, her voice crackling with concern. Are you all right? The simple question undid her, stripping away the fragile composure she had clung to all morning. I needed time to think of the next steps, she explained, so I disconnected myself from the world for a few days. That's fine. Your life is going through such a drastic change. Louise's tone softened. I know it feels that way now, with your secret exposed and the world peering into places they have no right to see. But this will pass. The news cycle will move on to fresher scandals and people will forget they ever cared about your life at all. How can I face them after this? Samantha asked. The judgment, the pity. She shook her head. You're not alone, Louise said firmly. You have me and the others. We've endured far worse and come out the other side. You will, too. What do I do now? Samantha asks. Like you said, take your time to think, then take control of the narrative, Louise said. Face those people to tell your story in your own words. Be honest but discreet, and make it clear that this is the only word you will give on the subject. The public will soon realize you value your privacy and move on to easier targets. Samantha nodded. You're right. I will face it, tell my truth, then disappear from view. I will have my baby, then start a new life with Kiron. Exactly. Speak your truth, then live your life, not for them, but for yourself and that baby you're carrying. You've been through too much to let a bunch of gawkers and gossip mongers steal your joy now. Stay strong, Sam. I know you have the power to rise above this. Thank you, Lou. I know what needs to be done, Samantha says. Anytime, Louise said. Now stand up, you've got this. The call ended, leaving Samantha alone with her thoughts of a family in a distant planet with her baby and Kiron. Samantha took a deep breath and took to record another statement. She presses record. Hello, everyone. I'm here today to address the rumors and speculations surrounding my pregnancy. The truth is, I have faced things in my life that most people can scarcely imagine, things that have irrevocably changed me. But through it all, I have found a strength I never knew I possessed. I know there will be those who judge me for the choices I've made, but this child I carry is a miracle in my eyes, and it is not for anyone to pass judgment upon. The details of how this child came to be are private. All that matters now is protecting this new life and preparing to embrace the joy and responsibility of motherhood. I ask only for the privacy and respect all individuals deserve as I navigate this next chapter of my life. My past is my own, but my future is open to infinite possibilities. And this child will be loved and cherished no matter what it takes. That is my promise today. Samantha ended the recording and reviewed the video, satisfied she had struck the right tone. She uploaded the new statement to her social media profiles, hoping her words would resonate with her followers and quell the spreading rumors. Within minutes, comments of support began flooding in. You're so brave. We're here for you, Sam. You deserve to live your life and be happy. Don't let anyone tell you different. Congrats on the baby, wishing you all the best. A surge of warmth and love flowed through the connection, as if in response. Samantha laughed. Samantha rested her hands on her swollen belly as she gazed out the window at the city skyline with the flutter of movement beneath her. The doorbell rang, startling Samantha. She walked over and peered through the peephole to find Louise waiting outside, 2 cups of coffee in hand. Samantha smiled, warmth flooding her chest, and opened the door. I didn't know you were in town. I came as soon as I saw the news reports, Louise said, concern etched into her delicate features. I had to make sure you were okay. You didn't have to do that. Samantha ushered her inside. But I'm glad you're here. Louise handed her one of the coffees. I know what it's like to have your life torn open for the public. You shouldn't have to go through this alone. Thank you, Samantha said softly, for always being there when I need you most. Louise squeezed her hand. That's what friends are for, and I will always be here to stand by your side. Samantha gazed into her friend's eyes, and she knew without a doubt that everything would be all right. Samantha stared at the glowing computer screen, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. Alien-human hybridization research filled page after page, a dizzying stream of data. She leaned closer, eyes narrowed in determination. Answers were here, somewhere, for her child. A name jumped out, Dr. James Sterling, renowned geneticist, passionate about discovery. Samantha's pulse quickened. This was it. She clicked his profile, scanning for contact details with bated breath. Have to reach out. Meeting. Answers. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Heart pounding, she started typing an email. Chose each word carefully. Situation explained. Meeting requested. Expertise sought. She read it over once, twice. Nodded firmly. This would work. Her finger hovered over the send button. Do it, be brave, for the baby. She clicked send, sitting back in her chair. A shaky exhale escaped her lips. The first step taken. Now. She waited. Samantha's eyes drifted across the room, taking in her sparse surroundings. Just a bed, a dresser, the computer desk. An ordinary life now shaken to its core. Her gaze snagged on the ultrasound photo taped to the wall. Her child. Half alien, half human. Impossible, but undeniably real. The computer screen flickered, catching her attention. A news headline flashed. Alien-human hybrids, unnatural and dangerous? Samantha winced. Another headline appeared. Hybrids, Playing God or scientific advancement? Her shoulders hunched, a swell of uncertainty rising within. Voices from the articles cried out in judgment, fear. Abomination. Threat to humanity. Each word a new cut. Samantha hugged herself tightly, feeling small and alone. Just then, a new email arrived with a soft chime. Dr. Sterling. Hands shaking, she opened it. His response was prompt, curious, and most importantly, kind. Samantha calmed herself as she entered the lobby of Dr. Sterling's research facility. The email exchange had been promising, but now came the true test, explaining her situation face to face. She approached the receptionist, a woman with sharp eyes and a severe bun. Samantha Wells, here to see Dr. Sterling. The receptionist nodded curtly. Of course. Follow me. Samantha was led through sterile white halls, lit by the same unforgiving fluorescent lights she had come to expect from such places. It did little to settle her nerves. Finally, they arrived at a nondescript door. The receptionist knocked twice, then opened it. Dr. Sterling, your appointment is here. Dr. Sterling looked up from his desk, removing a pair of slim glasses. He was older than Samantha expected, hair silver, face creased with wrinkles, but his blue eyes were piercingly sharp. Thank you, Martha. His voice was a soothing baritone. He gestured to a chair. Please, have a seat, Ms. Wells. Samantha sat carefully, perched on the edge. Dr. Sterling regarded her calmly, hands folded on his desk. Now then, how can I be of assistance? Where to even begin? Samantha twisted her hands in her lap, willing herself to speak. I'm pregnant, doctor. But the father, he's not human. She risked a glance at Dr. Sterling. His expression was neutral, attentive. Encouraged, Samantha continued. I was taken aboard an alien spacecraft. I remember bright lights, strange figures around me, and then I was back home, like nothing happened. She met his eyes, but something did happen, and now I'm carrying proof. Dr. Sterling leaned forward, fingers steepled thoughtfully. Fascinating. And you have evidence to corroborate your story? Samantha nodded, pulling out the ultrasound photos with trembling fingers. Proof of the impossible. Dr. Sterling took them, examining each one closely. When he looked up, his eyes were alight with academic curiosity. Ms. Wells, I believe you. Now, let's discuss how I may help. Samantha let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Dr. Sterling's calm demeanor and willingness to listen without judgment gave her a sense of relief she hadn't felt in a long time. Thank you, doctor. You have no idea what this means to me. Dr. Sterling offered a kind smile. Of course. Now, why don't you start from the beginning and tell me everything you can remember about your experience? Samantha nodded and launched into her story, describing the paralyzing fear and confusion she felt when the bright light enveloped her bedroom. The hazy, dreamlike memories of being examined by the alien figures. The shock of finding out she was pregnant weeks later, despite no relations with a human partner. Dr. Sterling listened intently, stopping her occasionally to ask thoughtful questions or have her clarify a detail. Samantha found herself opening up more than she ever had, comforted by his compassionate but clinical approach. After she finished, Dr. Sterling leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled in contemplation once more. A fascinating account, Ms. Wells, and the ultrasound confirms an unusual fetal development, to say the least. He met her gaze. With your permission, I'd like to run some tests. Examine genetic samples, monitor your pregnancy closely. Your experience represents an unprecedented opportunity for scientific discovery. Samantha hesitated only a moment before nodding. Of course, doctor. I'm not sure what the future holds for me and my child, but I want answers just as much as you do. For the first time since that fateful night, Samantha felt a spark of hope about the new life growing inside her. With Dr. Sterling's help, maybe she could finally understand. Samantha sat alone in her living room, nursing a cup of chamomile tea to soothe her nerves. She glanced anxiously at the clock. Kiron would be arriving soon for their first face-to-face meeting. A knock at the door made her pulse quicken. She set down her tea and went to open it. Kiron stood in the hallway, his striking visage seeming almost luminous in the shadows. "Ambassador," Samantha greeted him formally, making him smile, then ushered him inside. "I have been following the news about you. I know what you have been through," he stated. Samantha listened quietly, moved by his attention. "I want to protect our child, Kiron. Our family." She placed a hand on her belly. "But what will happen after the birth?" "You and the child will come to live on Xendari," Kiron explained gently. "I know it is much to consider, but you will be embraced as one of our own." There was someone she wanted Kiron to meet, Louise, her most trusted ally. She picked up her phone to arrange the introduction. Samantha arranged to meet Louise and Kiron at a quiet cafe downtown. She arrived early, her heart racing with anticipation. Louise was already seated at a table tucked away in the back corner. Samantha waved and headed over. "Thanks for coming," Samantha said as they hugged. "Of course." Louise studied her face. "You said this was important." Samantha nodded. "There's someone special I want you to meet. He's connected to my baby in a profound way." At that moment, Kiron entered the cafe. Samantha waved him over. Louise's eyes widened at the towering, luminous figure approaching them. "Louise, this is Kiron." Samantha made the introduction. "He's the father of my child." "It's a pleasure, Louise." Kiron's voice reverberated as he sat down. Louise looked astonished. "I don't understand. You're the—" "Yes." Kiron nodded. "Samantha and I have created something extraordinary together," he said, avoiding the alien subject. It was Samantha who jumped in to explain. "Kiron is from the planet Xendari. His people are in danger, and they believe human-alien hybrids are the key to their survival." Louise sat back, absorbing this. "I see. So that's why you and Samantha—" Kiron went on to share more about his mission and the future he envisioned for their children on Xendari. Louise listened intently, her expression softening. "I know this sudden meeting may come as a surprise," Samantha said gently, "but Louise has been my rock through all of this." Louise reached out and squeezed Samantha's hand, then looked at Kiron. "I won't pretend to fully understand, but I will support Samantha and this child in any way I can." Kiron's eyes shone. "You are a true friend. My people will be grateful." Samantha felt profound relief as she watched them connect. Chapter 12. Samantha stepped into the sterile office. Dr. Sterling looked up from his desk, eyes solemn behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Please sit." His voice was steady and low. She sank into the chair opposite him, clutching her trembling hands in her lap. Dr. Sterling folded his hands on the desk, regarding her for a long moment. "Your tests have come back with concerning results." Concerning. Not alarming, not dangerous. Concerning. Her stomach twisted. "There are anomalies in your DNA that point to genetic tampering." Genetic tampering. The words echoed in her mind, stark and implacable. She shook her head mutely. It couldn't be. "I'm afraid it's true." His voice was gentle. "Your DNA shows signs of hybridization with an unknown alien species." Alien. Hybrid. The words seemed utterly absurd, like something from a trashy sci-fi novel. But even as she struggled to deny their meaning, a part of her recognized the truth. "I know this is difficult to accept." Dr. Sterling's eyes were kind. "But we have evidence that a covert alien hybridization program has been taking place for decades. Abductees have been subjected to experiments resulting in viable hybrid offspring." Abductee. She shook her head. "It might have been the case in the beginning, but now she is Kiron's mate, not an abductee anymore." "I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this," Dr. Sterling said. "It will likely come as a shock." but it's important you understand the implications. She stared at him, the rest of his words fading into a dull roar. Her world had fractured into 1,000 pieces, and nothing would ever be the same again. Samantha had her eyes fixed on Dr. Sterling. Her heart pounded as she waited for him to continue. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. As I mentioned, we have evidence that alien-human hybrids are being created through these abduction experiments. Your DNA, along with other patients, shows signs of genetic tampering to introduce alien traits. She shook her head in disbelief, but his words echoed with truth. The strange dreams, the lost time, it all fit. The hybrids seem designed to eventually supplant humanity, he said. They possess enhanced abilities and lifespans. If their population grows uncontrolled, they could pose a threat to our species. A threat. She gripped the arms of her chair, knuckles whitening. The child inside her, was it truly inhuman? A menace to society? Supplant humanity? She had a plan with Kiron to leave Earth anyway. I understand this is difficult to hear, Dr. Sterling said gently. My goal is not to alarm you, but to make you aware of this. Her breaths came fast and shallow. She had to stay calm to think. But her mind was a chaotic swirl of fear, disbelief, and guilt. There are measures we can take to monitor the situation closely, he said. But the most important thing is that you understand the implications of your choice to carry this child. The future of both species may depend on it. She stared at him, the weight of responsibility pressing down upon her. She had to find a way to navigate this. There seemed no easy answers now. Only the hybrid child within her, and the unknown future that lay ahead. She swallowed hard, grasping for words. What exactly are these enhanced abilities you mentioned? Advanced intelligence, strength, and speed, as well as rapid healing abilities and slowed aging. Dr. Sterling adjusted his glasses. They can also manipulate their genetic structures to adapt to different environments. Some patients reported their hybrid children demonstrating telepathic or empathic abilities as well. Samantha blinked. This couldn't be real. She was caught in some strange dream, or had stumbled into a bizarre work of science fiction. Yet she could feel the child moving inside her, a reminder of truths too strange to deny. How is any of this possible? She whispered. How did they create these hybrids? That remains unclear. He spread his hands. We have theories, but no definitive answers yet. What we do know is that these hybrids seem designed to eventually dominate the planet, perhaps at humanity's expense. Dominate the planet. The words echoed in her mind, evoking images of an alien army marching across the globe, trampling all that was human beneath their feet. She shook her head fiercely. No, she couldn't think that way. This was her child, not some faceless menace. Kiron promised they would leave Earth as soon as the baby was born. Is he lying to her? She lifted her gaze to Dr. Sterling's. Is there a chance for peace between them and us? Or are we doomed to some inevitable war for survival? That remains to be seen. His expression was grim. Great change is coming, Ms. Wells, whether we are prepared for it or not. The future is unclear, but the consequences of each choice we make today will shape the world of tomorrow. She swallowed hard. You're asking me to make an impossible choice. How can I choose between my own species and my own child? I understand how difficult this is, he said gently. But you are in a unique position to influence how this unfolds. The hybrids already share part of your DNA. Perhaps that connection could be leveraged to build bridges between our kinds. Or perhaps it will only make things worse, she shook her head. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this. I never asked for any of this. None of us choose the challenges set before us, he said, but that does not mean we cannot rise to meet them. His words echoed in her mind as she stared at the floor. Rise to meet them. She had spent her life avoiding conflict, retreating into the safety of imagination. But this was no fantasy. This was real as the life growing inside her. She placed her hands over her stomach, feeling the subtle movements beneath. Her child. An alien child, yes, but hers nonetheless. She thought of its tiny hands and feet, its heartbeat, the way it seemed to react to her voice. A new life, as helpless and innocent as any other. And in that moment, staring into an uncertain future, she knew what she had to do. She lifted her gaze, meeting his eyes with quiet resolve. Tell me what I need to know. It's time I face the truth, for my child's sake. Dr. Sterling studied her for a long moment, his eyes glimmering with approval. A brave request. This will not be an easy path, but you have the strength within you. Of that, I'm certain. He leaned forward, hands folded on the desk. First, since your story has leaked, you must do your best to keep a low profile for as long as possible. We do not yet know how the public will react to the news when your baby is born, but there is a high probability it would provoke fear and hostility. Your safety and the child's safety must be our top priority. She nodded. What else? We will need to monitor you and the fetus closely. Regular tests and scans to track its development and ensure there are no complications. I want you to document anything unusual about the pregnancy, so we have a record of how hybrid gestation may differ from humans. You mean if it changes me somehow? A chill running down her spine. It's unlikely, he said gently, but we must be prepared for any possibility. The most important thing is that you remain calm and take care of yourself. Stress can negatively impact pregnancy, regardless of species. Calm, she repeated with an ironic huff. That may prove challenging. I understand, but you must try. For the sake of your child, and for the sake of humanity, we need you at your strongest. His gaze softened. You can do this, Samantha. I will be here to support you every step of the way. She stared at her hands, taking a deep breath. Calm. Strength. Secrecy. It seemed an impossible task, yet she had to try. She looked up at him again and nodded. Where do we begin? She left Dr. Sterling's office with her mind spinning. So many revelations, so much to process. She walked down the sterile white hallway in a daze, barely noticing the nurses and orderlies bustling around her. Hybrid. The word echoed in her thoughts, strange and alien, just like the new life growing inside her. She placed a hand over her still, flat stomach, a fierce surge of protectiveness washing over her. Different though it might be, it was still her child. She would do whatever it took to keep it safe. Even if that meant hiding the truth from the world, lying to friends and family about the pregnancy, concealing each new change in her body. It would be difficult, isolating, but for her child, she would endure. She stepped outside into the golden light of late afternoon, the familiarity of the scene belying how much had changed, how much she had changed in the space of a single conversation. She was no longer just Samantha, adrift in life and wondering about her future. She had a purpose now, a duty to fulfill, protect the hybrid, uphold the secrecy, ensure the future for her kind is secure. She was ready. Come what may, she would face it. For the future of two worlds, she had to. Without another word, she turned and left the clinic. The door closed behind her, sealing away the revelations within. She took a steadying breath and made her way down the hall on legs that threatened to give out beneath her, one step at a time. That was the only way to face a challenge like this. Yet, there was Kiron. She had to see him and confront her mate about the real intentions of the Xendari with their hybridization program. Chapter 13. Samantha paced, glancing at the clock. Where was he? She reached out with her mind, searching for Kiron's familiar presence. There, a faint glow in the distance. Why wasn't he responding? Her anxiety swelled. She took a deep breath and called out again, her mental voice edged with panic. Still nothing. She sank onto the sofa and buried her face in her hands. He had promised he would be here, that everything would be all right. Her eyes burned. She had trusted him, believed his soothing words and tender embrace. How could he do this to her? To them. The life growing inside her seemed to tremble in response to her distress. She placed a hand on her belly, willing herself to stay calm, for the baby's sake, if not her own. But she couldn't contain the storm of emotions crashing over her. Anger and sorrow and fear all twisted into a raging torrent, threatening to sweep her away. She leapt up again, unable to sit still. He knew how much she needed him, needed answers, and he had left her here, alone and adrift, without so much as a word of warning. A fresh wave of anger surged through her and she slammed a fist into the wall. Pain shot through her hand, but she barely noticed. How could she have been so foolish? She should have known better than to trust his kind. Should have listened to the warnings echoing in the back of her mind instead of being blinded by love and impossible dreams. She sank to the floor, wrapping her arms around herself as sobs racked her body. The empty room seemed to close in around her, shadows gathering in every corner. But in that moment of deepest darkness, a flicker of light sparked inside her. A flame of fierce defiance and protectiveness, igniting her will to fight. For herself, for her child. She would face this alone if she had to. The alien invasion, the uncertain future, all of it. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Her tears dried as resolve hardened within her. She stood, hands resting on the barely perceptible swell of her belly. Kiron might have broken his promise, but she would keep hers. Samantha looked around the living room, glancing at the clock with growing frustration. 4 hours. It has been 4 hours, and she still hadn't heard from him. Not a word, no explanation, nothing. Her anxiety twisted into anger as the minutes ticked by. She reached out with her mind once more, calling for Kiron, but there was only silence, an aching void where his presence should have been. He wasn't coming. The truth sank in with a bitterness that stole her breath. Kiron had left her, abandoned her to face an uncertain future and impossible choices alone. How could he do this? After everything they'd shared, all the promises he'd made. A lone tear slid down her cheek as she gazed out the window at the empty street below. The familiar landscape seemed alien now, as lonely and barren as she felt inside. Kiron had betrayed her. There could be no other explanation for his disappearance. No excuse that could justify breaking her heart like this. Samantha wrapped her arms around herself, shivering against the cold seeping into her bones. She had given him everything, her trust, her love, her future, and he had thrown it all back in her face. The alien she had come to care for, the man she thought she knew, had vanished as swiftly as a dream upon waking, leaving her with nothing but questions he would never answer, and a child who would never know its father. She bit back a sob, determination hardening within her. She had survived alone before Kiron, and she would do so again. For herself, for her baby, she would be strong. His people might have betrayed Earth, but she would not give them the satisfaction of breaking her. Kiron could disappear into the stars that had borne him, but she would remain. Unmoved, unbroken, standing tall against the coming storm. Samantha slammed her fist against the wall, anger and confusion warring inside her. How could she have been so foolish, so blind? Kiron had woven pretty words and impossible promises, seducing her with visions of a future together on his distant world. She had wanted to believe him, to trust in their bond and the love blossoming between them. Now she saw the truth. His pledges of devotion were nothing but lies, his tender caresses a means to an end. She had given him everything and received nothing in return. No explanation for his disappearance. No parting words, just silence. The same silence that now filled her apartment, heavy and accusing. As if the walls themselves bore witness to her stupidity, echoing back every foolish hope and dream she had dared to whisper in the dark. Samantha sank down against the wall, tears sliding down her cheeks. Grief and rage twisted inside her, sharp as a knife. She had sacrificed so much for a fantasy, a mirage that had vanished into starlight. She wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the empty room that symbolized all she had lost. Samantha wiped the tears from her eyes, sniffling as she steadied her breathing. She couldn't afford to break down, not now. There was too much at stake. With effort, she pushed herself to her feet. Her hands curled into fists at her sides, nails biting into her palms. "You coward," she whispered. "You lied to me. Used me. But I won't let you defeat me." Her voice gained strength with every word. "I stood by your side, trusted you with my heart, my life, my everything. You betrayed that trust, and now you'll face the consequences. I don't need you anymore. I have myself. I have this." She rested a hand on her stomach, warmth blooming beneath her palm. "Our child will want for nothing. You may have broken my heart, but you will never break my spirit. I choose my own path now, Kiron, and you are not in my future." Samantha took a deep breath, gazing around at the familiar room. The place that had once held such joy and promise now stood empty, but she could fill it with new hopes. A life of her own making, free from manipulation and lies. She smiled, a flicker of her former radiance returning. Kiron had shattered her world, but from the ruins, she would build something better, stronger. A home for her child, a life of truth and freedom. She owed herself that much. With light steps, Samantha walked to the window and drew back the curtains. The city stretched before her, bright with possibility. Her destiny was calling. Samantha took a deep breath and steeled herself, wiping away the last traces of her tears. No more crying, no more weakness. She had to be strong now, for herself and the new life growing inside her. She pressed a hand to her belly, a fierce surge of protectiveness washing over her. "Don't worry, little one. We'll be just fine on our own." Her lips curved into a determined smile. "Your mama is pretty tough. Tough enough to build a future without Kiron. Tough enough to face an unknown path, an unwritten destiny." She had come this far in life, relying on her own strength and wit. She could go the rest of the way and guide her child along the path, too. Samantha walked into her kitchen and filled a glass of water, drinking it down in a few thirsty gulps. The familiar ritual steadied her, grounding her in the present moment. In this place that was hers, alone now. She set the glass in the sink and wandered over to her desk, booting up the computer. There were plans to make, a new life to organize. She had always been good at details, at figuring out solutions to complex problems. This was no different. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she searched for jobs, places to live, everything that would secure her own small corner of the world where she could raise her child in peace, where the dreams of the future could eclipse the heartbreak of the past. Somewhere, out there, her destiny was waiting, and she would move heaven and earth to claim it. Chapter 14. Samantha doubled over as another contraction seized her body, the pain radiating through her swollen belly. This was it. The time had come. Panic and adrenaline flooded her veins. She clutched the edge of the kitchen counter. "Help!" she cried out. Her water broke, soaking her feet and the tiled floor. The reality of what was happening crashed over her in a wave of fear and excitement. She was going to be a mother. Kiron's child was about to enter this world. If only he were here. She gritted her teeth as another contraction came, determined to stay strong. She had to do this alone. For the safety of her child, their secret had to be kept. The pain was unbearable now, sharp stabs that made her see stars. She stumbled toward the phone and fumbled with the buttons, her fingers clumsy and weak. At last, the line started ringing. "Louise, help me! The baby's coming!" Samantha slid down to the floor, panting. She placed a hand on her rounded belly, feeling the rippling movements beneath. "I'm on my way," Louise's voice came through the phone. "Just hang in there, honey. I'm coming to get you." The call ended. Samantha was alone again. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the next wave of pain, and thought of Kiron. His presence, his voice, the warmth of his touch. She had to believe he would be there for her. It gave her strength. She smiled through the pain, rubbing her belly. Their baby was ready to enter the world. The doorbell rang, startling Samantha out of her reverie. She struggled to her feet as another contraction hit, gritting her teeth against the pain. "Samantha, it's Louise, let me in." Samantha hobbled to the door and flung it open. Louise rushed in, all frizzy red hair and freckles, her eyes bright with concern. "The car's outside. We have to go now." Samantha nodded, clutching Louise's arm for support as they made their way outside. The seats of Louise's sedan were worn and familiar, a comforting sight. As Louise slid into the driver's seat, Samantha breathed through the pain radiating from her middle. This was really happening. The car roared to life and they were off, buildings blurring past the window. Samantha leaned back against the headrest, feeling the first trickles of panic. What if something went wrong? What if the baby wasn't normal, wasn't safe to be around others? She thought of Kiron again and felt tears prick at her eyes. He should be here. A hand squeezed hers, rough and calloused. "You'll be fine," Louise said firmly. "Dr. Sterling knows what he's doing. He delivered all his daughters, and they turned out perfect." Samantha nodded, drawing strength from her friend's confidence. The clinic came into view, a nondescript brick building tucked between two larger ones. Louise pulled up to the entrance, throwing the car into park, before rushing over to help Samantha out. Pain radiated through her in waves now, and she gritted her teeth against a scream. The doors of the clinic flew open. A team of nurses rushed out with a wheelchair, helping Samantha into it before wheeling her inside. Dr. Sterling was waiting, his usual calm expression lined with concern. "It's time," he said, placing a hand on Samantha's shoulder. "You're going to do great." Samantha breathed deep, the scent of antiseptic filling her senses. She was ready. She had to be for the sake of her child. Their secret, their safety. It all depended on her now. She straightened in the wheelchair and met Dr. Sterling's eyes. "Let's do this." Samantha was surrounded. Voices swirled around her in a chaotic blur as the nurses prepped her for delivery. An IV was inserted into her arm, monitors placed on her swollen belly. She barely noticed the activity, her focus inward as another contraction hit. She gritted her teeth, clutching at the side of the bed. The pain was worse now, sharper, as if her body was being torn in two. "It's time to push." Dr. Sterling's voice cut through the haze. Samantha shook her head, panic flaring. It was too soon. She wasn't ready. "You need to push, Samantha." Louise grabbed her hand, brown eyes filled with encouragement. "You can do this." Samantha screamed, the sound echoing off the walls. She bore down with all her might, squeezing Louise's hand with bruising force. "The head is crowning." A nurse peered between Samantha's legs, her voice filled with awe. "One more big push should do it." One more push. Samantha swallowed hard, summoning the last of her strength. She thought of her baby, the new life she was bringing into this world. With a primal yell, she pushed with everything she had. There was a sudden release of pressure, and the piercing shriek of an infant filled the air. Samantha collapsed back against the bed, chest heaving. She had done it. Her baby was here at last. Samantha blinked through tears as the doctor lifted her squirming baby onto her chest. It was a girl. She gazed down into curious indigo eyes, set in a heart-shaped face, tiny hands grasping as it let out another loud wail. Her daughter, she had a daughter. Joy and wonder overwhelmed her as she cradled the newborn close. "Hello there," she whispered. The baby's eyes locked onto hers, and the crying stopped. The doctors were murmuring in confusion, casting uneasy glances at each other. Samantha barely noticed, too lost in her baby's gaze to care about anything else. Dr. Sterling cleared his throat. "Your daughter appears to have certain anomalous characteristics. Her eyes, for one, and the unusual hue of her skin." Samantha peered down at her baby again, noticing for the first time the faint lavender cast to her skin and the vivid indigo of her eyes. Unease stirred in her gut as the implications sank in. She is not entirely human, Louise bit her lip, glancing away. Samantha's hands tightened around her baby, a mix of emotions swirling within. She had known. Her daughter was only half human. The other half was alien. The other half was Kiron. News of the baby's birth leaks and spreads like wildfire, and the press goes into a frenzy trying to find where Samantha was admitted to give birth. Samantha stared out the window of the clinic's room, clutching her sleeping baby close. Helicopters buzzed in the sky and reporters crowded the front entrance, a chaotic sea of microphones and cameras. How had they found out so quickly? She rocked her daughter gently, anxiety twisting her gut. The public couldn't know the truth about the baby's origins. It would put them both in danger. A sharp knock rattled the door behind her. Samantha whirled around, pulse racing, but it was only Louise, concern etched into her features. "We have to move you," Louise said urgently. "The press is demanding answers, and it's only a matter of time before they figure out you're here." Samantha nodded, throat tight. She had known this was coming. Louise helped her pack up, casting wary glances out the window at the growing mob below. By the time they were ready to leave, the noise from outside had risen to a frenzied pitch. Samantha braced herself, clutching her baby close as they headed for the exit. She only prayed their escape from the clinic would go unnoticed amidst the chaos. Still, she couldn't help but feel Kiron's absence, her heart heavy with disappointment and confusion, as she wonders why he hasn't been there for her during this pivotal moment. Samantha settled into the back of the unmarked van, rocking her fussing baby as the vehicle pulled away from the hospital under cover of night. Her gaze drifted out the window, staring at the sky that had once seemed so distant and now felt all too close. She wondered if Kiron was out there somewhere, gazing at the same constellations from his home planet. Why hadn't he come for them? She swallowed hard against the ache in her throat, blinking back tears. They had a child together, a daughter, and yet he had abandoned them in their time of need. Perhaps she had been foolish to ever trust an alien, no matter how persuasive and compelling he had seemed. In the end, his loyalty would always remain with his own people. Samantha looked down at her baby, now sleeping peacefully in her arms, and her resolve hardened. She didn't need Kiron. She would protect and care for their daughter on her own. The van rumbled through the night, carrying them off into an uncertain future. But they would face it together, just the two of them, bonded in a way that transcended the barriers of species or worlds. Mother and daughter, and that was all they needed. Samantha stared at the sky once more. Xendari felt like a cold and distant memory now, a harsh reminder of Kiron's alien nature. She clutched her sleeping baby closer, the soft warmth of her daughter's body the only comfort she had left. Chapter 15. The shadows flickered across Samantha's face as she gazed into the bassinet. Her hybrid child slept peacefully, skin shimmering under its blanket. Responsibility. The word echoed in her mind as she reached out a trembling hand to brush the soft cheek. How could she guide this child who belonged to two worlds? A sudden glow illuminated the darkness. Samantha whipped around, heart pounding, and there he was. Kiron stood bathed in light, his alabaster skin almost blinding. "Do not be sad," he said in that deep, resonant voice. His eyes glowed with tenderness. "I could not be there for the birth. I had to protect us." Samantha swallowed hard, torn between relief and anger. "You left me alone." Her voice shook. "I didn't know if you'd come back." "I will always come back to you." Kiron glided across the room and enfolded her in his arms. His touch sent a wave of warmth through her body. "You are my heart, Samantha. You and our child are all that matter to me now." She breathed in his scent, felt the strength in his embrace. The fears and doubts receded, leaving only love and trust in their wake. Kiron gazed down at the sleeping infant. His eyes shone with wonder and purpose. "Our child will unite our worlds," he said. "She is our future." Samantha looked from her alien lover to the child they had created together. The responsibility was staggering, yet when she saw the devotion in Kiron's face, she knew they would shoulder it together. She reached for his hand and clasped it tight. "We're a family now," she said softly. "Nothing is more important." Kiron lifted her hand and kissed it. His smile lit up the room, brighter than any glow. "The future is ours," he said. Samantha smiled in return. The future was theirs. Samantha gazed into Kiron's obsidian eyes, seeing her own reflection within their depths. His hand cradled her cheek, a gentle warmth seeping into her skin. "I'm sorry I couldn't be with you," he said again. "The risk of discovery was too great. But I was there in spirit, my love, and I felt our child's first cries as if they were my own." Samantha leaned into his touch. "I did not know," she whispered. "I thought you had left us for good." Kiron bent his head and kissed her, a sweet and tender joining of lips. Samantha melted against him, her fears dissolving in the warmth of his embrace. Samantha's eyes welled with tears at the depth of love. "Now we are one," she said. "Don't you forget that." "I never shall." Kiron lifted his head and regarded her with eyes that shone like twin suns. "You are my equal in all things, Samantha. My love, my light, my reason for being. Together we will build a future where our child can grow in a happy family." Samantha smiled. The tears that had gripped her began to fade, replaced by a deep sense of peace. They were united in purpose and vision, joined at the deepest levels of heart and soul. With Kiron at her side, she knew she could accomplish anything. Samantha gazed down at the sleeping infant in her arms, traces of a bright skin peeking out from the blanket's folds. Her heart swelled at the sight of those obsidian eyes, a mirror of Kiron's, blinking open to regard her with a curious and knowing gaze. So strange yet beautiful, like a living jewel, a symbol of the love she shared with an alien from a distant world. Kiron stood beside her, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "How pretty she is." "Perfect," Samantha whispered. She stroked one finger down the baby's cheek, fascinated by the contrast of human pink against her alien tones. "She has your eyes." "And your spirit." Kiron pressed a kiss to her temple. "You've given her a gift more precious than any other by bringing her into this world. Because of you, she will know both the wonders of Xendari and the beauty of Earth." Samantha leaned into him, warmth blossoming in her chest. "We're in this together, remember? Partners until the end. Partners forever, my love." Kiron gazed down at their daughter, eyes glowing with pride and purpose. "She is the best of both worlds, and will serve as a bridge between our species. Into a world where she will be accepted for who she is," Samantha said softly. She stroked the baby's downy hair, imagining the challenges and triumphs that awaited him. They were a family now, bonded by love and a shared vision of harmony. And this was only the beginning. They had sacrificed much to protect their child, but those sacrifices would not be in vain. Their daughter would lead the way into a future of possibility, embracing both sides of his identity to become a symbol of unity. A bridge between the worlds that had given him life, guiding humanity and Xendari to a new age of harmony. Samantha closed her eyes and rested her head on Kiron's shoulder, content in that feeling. Kiron placed his hand over hers, their fingers intertwining. Samantha leaned into his touch. She smiled up at him, eyes glimmering with purpose. Partners until the end, and far beyond. Kiron bent his head and captured her lips in a searing kiss, sealing their unspoken vow. A surge of love and conviction flowed between them as they held each other close. Kiron placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch radiating warmth and comfort. "Our child will know only love and acceptance. In any place we will make our home." Samantha stood, still holding Kiron's hand as she gazed down at their sleeping child. Together, nothing was out of their reach. I know," she whispered. Kiron gently took the child from her arms, holding her close. The baby cooed softly, tiny hands reaching up to clutch at Kiron's fingers. A surge of joy and purpose flooded Samantha's heart at the sight. She gazed at Kiron and the baby, seeing two worlds joined in the space between them. A glimpse into the future they would forge, step by step, together. Samantha took Kiron's free hand, their fingers intertwining as she looked into his fathomless eyes, and smiled. Samantha gazed out the window of their transport, mesmerized by the alien landscape unfolding before her eyes. Rolling lavender hills dotted with crystalline outcroppings under a sky of perpetual twilight. Two moons hung overhead, their silvery light bathing the terrain in an ethereal glow. Everything about this world felt strange and wondrous, tugging at her senses until she could almost believe she was dreaming. If not for the solid weight of her son resting in her arms, the anchor binding her to this reality. Kiron sat beside her, one hand resting on her knee in a gesture of quiet intimacy. "We have arrived in the Tesseran Plains," he said, pride tinging his tone. "One of the most beautiful regions on Xendari. Our new home." Samantha smiled, enchanted by the view. "It's like something from a fantasy." She glanced at Kiron, warmth flooding her at the love and contentment in his gaze. "Thank you for bringing me here, for giving me this life and our child a place where she'll always belong." Kiron lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a tender kiss against her knuckles. "You have given me far more, Samantha. A family and hope for my people's future." He gazed down at the baby, who was blinking up at the shimmering sky with sleepy curiosity. Samantha nestled closer against Kiron, her heart overflowing. They had traveled far from home, stepping into the unknown. But she knew, with stark certainty, that she was exactly where she was meant to be, surrounded by wonders and warmed by love. The end.
This is an exclusive production of the Romance Fiction Club. We hope you had a good time listening. Please like and subscribe so that we can continue creating free content for you to enjoy. Check out our library for more exciting romance stories. Thank you and have a wonderful day. See you soon. Bye-bye.